power was out for a day, but
Yeah, that's not too bad, yeah.
plus it was like 34 degrees there. So.
Yeah.
Good, okay. Everybody, welcome to the January 29th, 2015 Board of Selectmen meeting. We're going to ask our town administrator to please read through the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda, and I'd recommend amending the agenda to remove the approval of minutes, and then a public comment period, and then a one-day liquor license request for Forest and Trails Association, and a one-day liquor license request for Sherborn Playground fundraiser. And then we'll start looking at FY16 budgets, starting with recycling, farm pond, veterans agent, fire department, council on aging, and then we'll discuss some remaining budgets with town buildings, employee benefits, debt, town treasurer, and town accountant. And then for routine business, we'll look at the FY 2015 annual town meeting warrant, and I'll give you an update on personnel, and then time for selectmen reports, and review the meeting calendar and set the next meeting, and then approve a single payroll warrant.
Okay, any amendments to the
Yeah, I have
agenda?
a suggestion. This is sort of impromptu, but we just went through a major storm. We have our fire chief here. Why not have him give a report to the community?
Great idea, yeah.
About the status of the town?
He's still here.
Can we do that as part of his budget talk, so he's already up there? Unless you think it's got to go first, whatever
Well,
you think.
I would think people are interested.
So do it during public comment then. Okay, that's great. That sounds good. So do we have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor of amending the agenda? Aye. Okay, good. Now we are up to public comment, and as we just heard, we're going to hear from our fire chief.
Good evening. Yeah, we fared very well, as we were discussing shortly before the meeting began. 33 inches, give or take an inch, depending on where you lived in town. Fortunately, we all met early on Monday morning, had a department head meeting, went over the what-ifs, kept in close contact with MEMA over in Framingham, so as soon as I was getting situational awareness statements, I was getting them back to the board here, as well as to the other department heads. Fortunately, the governor having the roads closed statewide really made a difference. Getting people off the road, having the schools closed, made a big difference. It allowed CMD to get out, trying to keep the roads open as best they could. Of course, overnight was, as you heard, the wind probably blowing against your windows and probably waking all of us up at one time or another. It got pretty dicey for them, and I think they did take a little break for an hour or two to, let the snow do its thing and then get back out there when it lighted up a little bit. As for emergencies, the first night was very quiet with the police department. They said they had 2 routine phone calls, pretty much informational issues. We had 2 medical incidences during the Tuesday day period. Nothing weather-related, just poor timing for somebody to have a medical event, unfortunately, but they were handled with the ambulance crew, and we had extra staffing on, so that was a benefit. We brought shovels, we brought a Stoke stretcher, we were able to get people in and out of the house very quickly. And then it was just a cleanup matter. We did not lose power at any time, best of our knowledge. Fortunately, this region west of the canal really fared pretty good, and as Mr. Caruso was saying earlier, the closer you got to the shore, unfortunately, they really took a beating. Scituate and Cohasset and everywhere along those lines, but we didn't have those types of winds around here. I think about 35 miles an hour, if I recall, from the MEMA statement. So we made out really good. Fire department had crews right up until early this morning, staying at the station. We provided some extra food for them and some warm places for them to sleep. So we're ready for the next storm, whatever that may be.
Right.
That might be tonight.
2 to 4 inches is, just like I said earlier, just a passing, light dusting, correct, Mr. Taylor says. So I think we'll get by fine.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you
that was
for
great.
everything that you and the police and CM&D and
We
all the emergency.
talked every couple of hours, either by the cell phone, email, texting, and in person throughout the whole day and into the night. So, communication was very good, and we kept, tried to keep you as advised as we were getting them. And literally, I was turning those situational statements over to all the department heads and yourselves as soon as I was getting them from Framingham. So it's the top-down type of thing. As I was getting it from Boston and everything, we were getting it down here at the local level.
Oh, I felt pretty safe and comfortable here in town with the likes of you and our police chief and our CM&E director on the job. Thank you.
I'll pass it on to our staff.
Yeah, I
I
have to
appreciate
echo, I
that.
have to echo Paul. As my understanding, you guys, all 3 teams really worked well together. And as Paul says, I felt I was warm, fat, dumb, and happy with you guys on the job there.
And then that makes it a lot easier for us.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a great
Seriously.
job. Great job. And thanks for the updates,
Good job.
too.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no more public comment, right? Nobody signed up, so we'll go to the liquor license request for Forest and Trails. Jean, do you want to walk us through that one?
It's for Forest and Trail and the Sherborn Playground Committee.
Okay.
They're asking for a one-day liquor license. The playground is to actually tomorrow night, and the Conservation Connections is next week. So everything is there. The insurance certificate, which shows the town of Sherborn and the community center both additional insured. The police chief and the fire chief have both signed off. There will be a detail for both events.
Okay, anybody have any questions on
No, I'd
these?
move approval, and I'd move approval of fee waiver as well on both.
Susan, she's the chair, she might want to talk about casino night tomorrow night.
Yeah, good chance to promote it.
We'll let you do an ad. Let's vote this and do an ad. What do you think? Okay,
Absolutely,
so come on up
yeah.
to the table.
All right, great, thank you.
So we have a motion to approve with a waiver of the fee for both of the liquor licenses. I guess we should do probably one at a time. So the first one would be Sherman Forest and Trail. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Well, I have an objection to the
Okay.
police detail, but if it's important to have a police detail, I want to make sure that it's at no charge to the charity that's having the fundraising. So I would expand the motion to include a waiver of all fees.
Susan can answer, you booked the detail?
We have booked the detail for 4 hours that night.
Okay.
As far as the waiver of the fees, I don't think it was.
We would
requested.
greatly appreciate an approval of the waiver of the fees for the permit and the detail. The committee is doing, we are at about, our goal is $200,000 to raise. Our build is slotted for the fall of 2015. This event will put us about $140,000 towards our
That's great.
our goal. We've done a lot of events and aggressive fundraising here in town, but as you know, it's not an easy task, so, and we're all volunteer, so we would really appreciate it, the waiver of the fee for the evening, if it's at all possible.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
fundraising effort.
Yeah, so I would accept Paul's friendly amendment there
Okay.
on the waiver of the police detail fee as well, on
Okay.
both of these events.
So we have, and just understanding that that's coming out of the town's budget then? This is not charity by the policeman.
Right.
Well, if they wanted to do that, I wouldn't say no to that, but I understand it'll be out of the town's budget.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. With that amendment, this is on, I thought we were doing the other
All
one
right, do
first.
the first, yep,
But,
Well, this is the playground.
Yes,
so the playground.
tomorrow
well, we
night.
have the playground.
That's second. We got another one. I think the motion actually was for the other one.
Yeah, the motion was for the Forest and Trails, so, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, so that's 3-0.
But I'd make Peter's motion for the second one.
Okay.
So accept it, so, yeah.
You second?
Yeah, I second that,
Okay.
yeah.
Any further discussion about Forest and Trails?
No,
Okay.
which one are we voting?
Well, we just voted the other one. I'm sorry, we voted
Voting
Forest and
playground
Trails.
now,
We're
yeah.
voting playground. Everybody's got me turned around. All right, now we're voting the playground one.
Trails, playgrounds.
All in
They're
favor? Playground.
good things.
All right,
Reverse
okay, good.
chronological order.
Great, so they're
Yeah.
both approved, and this, tell us again when this event is?
The casino night is tomorrow night at the community center, and there's still tickets left, so feel free. We're having we have a price for casino players, and we have a price for non-players for the night. It's $100 to play and $75, and you can always decide at the door if you want to play and buy chips there. We are giving Bruins tickets out to the biggest chip winner of the night, so we got those donated by Needham Bank. And we have food donated by Stonehearth Pizza from Needham, so the family actually is from town. And we have a band, live band, so, and it proves to be a great night. So from 7-Eleven, right across the road at the community center. So, and like I said, we're hoping to rebuild that playground in the center of town, which is in desperate need of repair by the fall of this year.
That's great,
So-
and I think at least two of us, probably all three of us up here were involved in building that playground
First
at
one.
least maybe 2 times ago.
Yeah,
I think it's been renovated even since then.
yeah, I helped
I
build
think
that,
every
bang
10
some
years or
nails.
so, I think
Yeah.
it goes through a complete
Yeah.
overhaul, so that's
Well,
great that you're doing it.
the nonprofit's been around since '94, so that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, my wife was on that original committee.
Really, that's great. We're excited. We're excited. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a fun
What
event for
about
us.
the bricks? I have a couple of bricks.
I have
The bricks are staying. The
Great.
bricks are staying, and we're going to do a campaign to continue the brick program.
Oh, good.
So, and expand it, so, as part of
Excellent.
our design.
Yeah, I was out there hammering away.
Yeah.
We
And
all
It was
were.
fun.
And it will, come out and bring your hammers out again. We're doing a community build, so that, the new playground will be built by the Sherborn community and the Sherborn residents, so, and anybody else we can recruit and volunteer as
great.
volunteers for the day. It's a community build. We're not hiring the project out to, we've hired out designers who are experts in doing this to help us through the process and help us with the design and get the right people, but we'll be doing a huge push, probably in about a month or so, for the build, getting those committees. We have to collect tools, we have to coordinate tools, donated services, donated material, so we'll be soliciting all of that as our next round. I think this is one of our last events,
That's great.
so we're excited
Thanks
about
for
it.
all the hard work on that, too.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, it's been great. It's rewarding.
There you go.
Thanks. Any other questions for me?
No, thank you, you're all approved. We just have to sign your
Sign the
permit,
stuff.
you're good to go. And, Gene, do we take a copy and then, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so Gene will get you the original.
This is for the Sherborn Playground. And this is for the conservation.
Okay. All right, now we're doing budgets. I think the first one up is recycling. David, do you want to walk us through this? It looks
Sure.
pretty simple.
The recycling budget is, reflects basically the activities of the recycling committee, and the chair is Carol Rubenstein, and basically the recycling committee is in charge of coordinating like the hazardous waste day and getting out some other communications about various items, and the committee is also involved with the operation of the transfer station, basically as an advisory committee. The amount for FY 2016 is $4,040. That's just a raise, an increase of $43 or 1% over the current year appropriation of $3,997.
So, David, I noticed there's actual expenses of $29.22. So are we on track now to hit budget for 2014? Are we going to spend everything that was spent?
I think-
2015, I mean, I'm sorry, 2915.
I think because of some of the changed efforts we did in mailing,
Yeah.
we did save a few bucks on, so,
Well, because my point is, I mean, it's not big money, but we were $1,000 under in fiscal 14.
right.
If we're going to be under in fiscal 15, it may not make sense to do the standard increase for fiscal 16. It looks like we may have succeeded in cutting that budget by $1,000 or $500. It would make sense to do that. I mean, this committee does great work, but there are some things in this budget which, you know, I'm not sure I entirely understand. There's a $25 a month newsletter subscription, which looks like an email service. And is this something that just one committee uses, or does that benefit the town as a whole? Is it a subscription that the whole town uses, or do we have, you know, the recycling committee spending a tenth of their budget on a subscription to some email service,
Right.
which I don't even understand?
They actually issue a newsletter by email.
So they issue their newsletter by email, and that service pays for the newsletter? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think it's constant
Constant
contact or
contact.
something.
Okay, so what does that mean?
But they have their mailing list in.
So they
the
provide
constant
content,
contact.
and they give it to this group, and this group does the mailing?
It's basically a canned website, so the recycling committee, I think it's Carol,
Yeah.
she goes in and sets up, so when she sets up the newsletter, then she can mail it out to whoever the list is that's already in there.
So this is a service that provides the outline for a newsletter?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So that's effectively the cost of the newsletter, is $300. Okay, and in terms of the printing and postage, we talked about that. I think you said they were saving some on printing and postage.
That reminds me, we had this policy of, I don't mean to interrupt,
Oh, go ahead.
but we were talking about a policy about mailing, and all mailing was supposed to be using the town's,
Yes.
what do you call that?
Bulk rate?
Bulk rate.
Yeah.
And I know that the recycling committee does a lot of good mailings, and they alert people to the best practices for recycling. Are they using the town bulk mail permit?
Mhm.
Did we did vote that policy, did we?
No, I have to bring it back one more time for a final vote. I think we kicked it back out for some comment.
It seems like a long time ago.
It
was
was
a
probably
long
6
time.
months ago, anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we finalized it, but I think there were some issues of having some groups coming directly through the TA's office and all that sort of thing was still part of the discussions, but I think we were all on the same page to the extent the town's bulk mailing permit could be utilized, it should be utilized.
And to the extent you can share mailing, you should share mailing.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, on this budget,
Go ahead.
on this budget, just reading some of the commentary, and I think we've heard Carol, express her concerns about shortchanging the recycling, in her mind, shortchanging, and I don't mean to put words in her mouth, shortchanging the recycling efforts by not doing the mailings that they'd like to do. And so it really boils down to helping the recycling committee continue to get the word out, encourage recycling, which I don't know that anybody's against, but also what they're doing new and so forth that people can take advantage of so that we ultimately reduce the waste that we have to pay to get hauled out of here. So I don't have the right answer. I don't object to anything anybody said so far, nor what's written down here. It's just, we do have a little bit of we're not quite all on the same page, it seems, in terms of the recycling committee and the board here, with the best way to get the word out and whether we should be paying for all this, the postage and so forth.
Well, let me join in one thing that you said. I view the recycling effort as a source of revenue for the town, as a moneymaker for the town, because the more people recycle, there's a direct correlation to reducing the expenses that we pay out. So I see for every dollar invested in recycling, we get that back multifold. and therefore I want to be sure that they have all the resources they need to maintain a high recycling rate. And I was just reading in the minutes that we're now at 36% recycling rate in the town, which I think is an all-time high. So where you have something that's working and is moving the town in the right direction, I wouldn't want to rock the boat. I want to give them what they need, and this is all short money. I mean, the total budget here is $4,040.
So, yes, but here's the thing, I think, I'll say it again, because we haven't looked at the Board of Selectmen budgets in total and where we're at on those, we can't really make a line item determination.
Well, can I ask you what this is?
Well, I don't know ask David what that is, but if
I
we
think that's
want
what
to
you
talk,
might be talking about.
that's close to what I'm talking about, but it doesn't really tell us where we're at versus advisory guidance, and so I think I'm pretty sure we're going to find ourselves above and beyond advisory guidance, and then the question becomes, how firm is advisory on their guidance, or how else to get closer to the advisory guidance? And here, based on just, for example, what Mike was describing, there may be $1,000 to play with based on actuals we've looked at. So if nothing else, this would be, if we were looking to find $1,000 to avoid an override, just as an extreme example, this would be a place I'd look very hard for.
Yeah, and I'll just point out a couple of things here. If you look at the dues and subscription line item in 11, 12, and 13, it was near $100, 170, 100, 115. And at that time, the equipment, which I think are recycling bins, and that's a great expense, those were $2,500, $1,500, $2,300. And then you went to fiscal 2014. Well, the new equipment dropped by $1,500 that year, and it stayed pretty steady at $838, $825, $838 appropriation this year, asking for $870. That's fine. But what happened? At least some of that went into dues and subscriptions. So $795 appropriated in 2014, $452 actual, $855 appropriated last year. I don't know what the actual is, and asking for $855 again. One of those items is a $300 other conference attendance, and yet there's not a conference specified. It's if there's a conference that comes to the Boston area, it'd be worthwhile to attend. Well, there may be a conference that money could be spent on, or that money might be able to come out of another source if there's really a conference that's worth attending. We may not need to carry that $300 for the third straight year when it hasn't been used. And just because we have guidance of 1% or 1.5% doesn't mean you have to rearrange all the columns so they actually total up. You can go back to what you did the year before, the last time you actually expended the funds. So, I'm fine with this newsletter. It was explained to me. I understand it. But I don't think it makes sense to carry. And similarly, for the printing and the signs, if we need that, that's fine. I'm looking at much lower actuals for 14, 13, 12, and 11 than what was appropriated last year or what's requested this year. And so there could be another $500 of savings there. And if it turns out that there needs to be something, later shifted from the Selectmen budget, or we need to go next year and increase the budget because there's something worth spending, that's fine. But I just, it's little stuff, it's incremental, but, like Peter said, I think if, in the end, it's taxpayer money, and I think we've got to make sure that the money does create the kind of return you were talking about, Paul. And if it's money that's appropriated just because it was appropriated the year before, that's not really moving the ball.
Well, I think a partial answer to that, I mean, Carol Rubenstein isn't here, so I can't be anywhere near as eloquent as she would be. But I think they put money in here, and then they get grants, and they get opportunities come their way, which allows them not to spend money that was appropriated. But I think they would say that those grant opportunities may or may not arise, and if they don't, they need to still carry on their functions. They've been pretty successful the grants have been small. I mean, they've been hundreds of dollars, maybe 1,000 or two, but nothing, not like big grants of hundreds of thousands of dollars. But on a total budget of $4,000, if they got a grant, and they have been getting grants. The DEP has this program to issue grants, and I know they apply for it on a regular basis. So I would say some of the actual figures are because they're getting support elsewhere.
Is that accounted for that way, David?
It's not, yeah, I mean, the grants come in somewhere else.
They show them on the lead page.
On which
They,
one?
Well, they showed sales. I didn't see any grants showing there. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any grants in
No.
this budget.
right.
Paul's hypothesis is that the grants are coming in and they're defraying some of the expenditure.
I don't know that that's netted against the expense item or the appropriated item,
No.
right? It typically is not, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, Paul. I don't think holding the budget to what's been actually spent and appropriated for the past 3 years on some of these items is going to compromise the mission of the committee. And again, we're spending time talking about a $4,000 budget.
Yeah,
It's the
but
principle.
it is the principle. But the other thing, one of the principal distinctions I would make is that, just as you said, it's so easy to say, well, we're looking to get a 1.5% increase on a budget, a particular budget, when in reality, our guidance is we're looking to get a 1.5% increase overall from advisory's guidance on a $4.3 million worth of a variety of budget items, not the individuals. And so it's that pool that needs to be played with, and that's why I say, to the extent we're looking for $1,000, this would certainly be one place I'd look for it.
Let me go to the question that
So-
I was talking about before. You, Peter, have made some excellent points about we need to see the overall picture.
Yes.
And I know you've asked for that for some time. And there is this document that was in the packet,
Right.
which was Board of Selectmen budget analysis, which I, from my legal perspective, thought maybe this was what you were talking about. But you're the CPA type.
Well, if we're,
Yes.
to talk about that briefly, I'll just give you my 2 cents of this. This is a tool for David, and I think it's a very good management tool. It isn't in the format that advisory has used, okay? Because advisory grouped a very specific number of budget items together to come up with, okay, you got $65,000 to play with. This has a bunch of things. This has, for instance, you see debt as part of the total and general insurance and employee benefits, which are standalones under advisory's guidance. So to the extent that advisory can rethink their guidance in terms of better the management tool that David's working with, that's one thing. But I will say, in their guidance, they included a couple of budget departments that aren't on this list, recreation and cemetery, which are subject to different management, if you will.
Like I said, I developed the Board of Selectmen budget using this, and then over time, we reconcile with whatever the advisory
Yeah,
budget is.
so that's the step that needs
But
to take place.
this does say that right now, currently, under the Board of Selectmen budgets, not including town accountant and treasurer, nor including legal and other insurances, nor the fee-funded departments like elder housing and farm pond, the budgets are $88,448 over advisory's guidance. So it's 2.3% over the guidance.
Which is basically overtime. It's $3,000 more than the overtime overage.
Right, but I would also argue that that also is artificially low by 80,000 approximately, 78,000, because it's using the take-home vehicle budget here, which is not what advisory had in their original guidance, right?
Right, if you
And
take-
that's $78,000 worth of cars. So it's not to say that that's wrong, but you can identify.
Just puts it back
you
in
can-
capital.
You can, that's right. So you could say, well, we're really closer to 150,000 or so, 160,000 over advisory's guidance for that grouping of items. And then you peel away and you say, but 85,000 of that is the unique approach that we're taking on overtime, right? The extra overtime. And the other piece is that there's another 38, 39, 40,000 for an additional cruiser above and beyond the norm, right? Right? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you can't build any selectman model unless you decide which you're going to do on that
No, I
take-home
understand
vehicle
that,
program.
but I'm just looking for where we're over. And then, that's all. I mean, it's, and part of it is where advisory, how
Well, the areas-
advisory wants to talk about it.
That are over is the police department, which the overtime was up 85,000. And then this is built with the take-home vehicle program. If you take that out, you got to add another 70,000 in to the operations budget. And then for the CM&D, it's up 30,000, but that's because it's outsourcing the catch basin cleaning. So if you prefer not to outsource catch basin cleaning, you have to add another 22,000.
But you got to buy a piece of machinery.
I'm sorry, you have to add in the capital item of 180,000.
Yeah, so they're all very good reasons why it is where it's at, and I think it's still the model overall, right, David, that
Well, I think it's pretty clear when you look at
we're
it
not
that...
doing an override, we're not using free cash and so forth.
Right.
But what, so when you say you want a model, what additional material,
Well,
just so I understand, you're looking for all the categories that advisory lumps together?
Well, I think that's sort of the starting point, just so I know where we're at. I understand this is a good breakdown. I'm not saying anything bad about this schedule, but I think you still got to kind of go back to where advisory starts you off with to see where you're at. And you have to kind of work it through to get to that.
If you look in the TA adjusted versus the FY16 guideline, you can see the amounts that you're over the advisory, and there are only two departments, police department and CM&D. Everything else is
And building inspector.
within...
Yeah, within 1,000.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit on town
Town
buildings.
But the stuff we have the least control over, basically.
Yeah, and then I would look, David, on their advisory guidance for, as you get to some of the items below the BOS subtotal. For instance, the treasurer number, I think they had different number of guidance. I mean, I just looked at this first time this afternoon. Employee benefits, their guidance has a higher number. I think their guidance said 2 million, you have 2,168 in their guidance number, but I think they had, they did have 2,350,000 for that
Well,
item.
Like I said, I'm reconciling the rest of it, but the top part of the Board of Selectmen budgets
Okay.
is,
Yeah, and I would look at the debt service, they had a different
I mean...
guidance number as well.
I don't know if it's fair to, I mean, you can look at the overall model with, but it's not fair to ding the selectmen budgets because of debt service payments, or,
I'm not suggesting that.
that's why I broke those out as,
Yeah.
unclassified.
Yeah, and their guidance had each of those discrete, right? And
Yeah.
they understood, for example, on the insurance and benefits, they had roughly a 9% increase factored into their guidance, because they already knew
Right.
what reality was going
Right.
to be.
So that update from advisory that I got today at 4, I forwarded that to you, and that has a list of the items that are different between our model and their model.
Did you forward that to the board, David?
Yeah, I forwarded it to Peter Bell.
Okay,
I'll forward it to the
when
board.
did you just sent that? Because I don't think I've seen that.
It was, yeah, before the meeting.
Yeah, just send that kind of stuff
Six.
to everybody.
I mean, like I said, I got it at 4.
Yeah, I know, but if you're going to send it around, send it to
Oh,
everybody.
that's why you're asking me, yeah.
Well, I
6
have to
o'clock.
leave my office at 3:30, 4 o'clock in order to make a meeting at 6. So
Yeah.
if you're sending important documents, anything you send after 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I wasn't sending
He did say
anything that
he
was
just
going to be
got it.
discussed
Yeah,
tonight.
Paul, I think
Yeah.
he said he just got it at 4.
Yeah, and I just got it at 5:59.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to seeing whatever that is, yeah.
But that's not, that's the remaining items that need to be reconciled with advisories. And, they do have some different percentages or assumptions in their model that, I need to work out with Ben. But it's primarily in those unclassified areas
Yeah,
where
okay.
the big dollars are.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so taking this back to the recycling budget for the time being. Well, I mean, that's an important general conversation, but I mean, right now, I guess we have to take some action on this budget, David, or just give you some impressions?
No, you don't have to.
Vote? What do you have to do? What do we have to do?
If you're going to take action as far as changing the number, it's better to do it now.
I mean, I'll tell you what I would do is I would take $500 off of this. I'd drop the conference item, and I'd take some off of the printing and signage item, because I don't think that's been spent recently. And I guess I'd take 500 off of that and 300 off of the dues and subscription item, and leave it at that. And if for some reason next year there's a justification for those items, we can revisit them, but that's what I would do.
Well, I'd be reluctant to do that without at least having Carol
Well, I think
buy into it.
yeah, I kind of think that way. I think where I'm at, I think your advice is very good in terms of what you think ought to be done. I think we throw it back to our town administrator, who can also evaluate it further and evaluate it with
That's fine.
Carol and come back to us, because again, I'm not comfortable until we see the total picture of everything. Yes, we have this information. I think we're probably, to the extent we're beyond advisory's guidance, we have good reasons to be, and no compelling push to go cut something somewhere in a great way here to avoid an override, okay? We're still spending other people's money, so I think your advice is good. When we take a vote, which I hope is going to be the next meeting, on the selectmen's budgets and these other budgets,
So
he'll have
between
done his
now and
homework
then,
between
could
now
we
and then.
Take Mike's ideas, run them by Carol, and see if there's a reason why she needs, like,
She's very carefully explained all of it in here, Paul. I don't mind doing that, but if the explanation is different than what's in here, I'm going to wonder why. The $300 is requested. In addition, when and if a national conference comes to
Right.
the Boston area, it has proved very worthwhile to attend in order to stimulate an even larger vision of what is possible. Therefore, the $300 is requested. There's no indication that a conference is coming. That money wasn't spent last year or the year before, and it wasn't in the budget before that. So it's great to want to carry $300 in case something comes along that you want to do with it, but that's not how we make budgets in a town that's, financially constrained.
no, it's a $26 million budget, and it's a $300 item. and
Okay.
I think just as a matter of, I don't disagree with your point, which is, if the money's not needed, it shouldn't be there. But I think as a courtesy to someone who is an unpaid volunteer for like 26 years, if you notice the compensation line is zero. that
Same as ours.
At least she should be given an opportunity to hear what our thinking is, and
That's great, yeah. I'm fine with that. I would also ask her about the signs, David, the $750 for signs, given that the budget on that item, printing and signs, was increased to $2,000 in fiscal 14, and $1,200 was spent, and it was carried at the same amount in 15. I don't know what's been spent so far. That would be interesting to know. And then for some reason, we're requesting an $11 increase for 16, which to me, I don't even know where the $11 comes from. But it's probably just rounding off. So anyway, that's where I am with this. So should we go on to Farm Pond? Now that we're all warmed up.
let's plunge in.
I think we're in over our head already.
I think it's kind of cold is what it is. Okay.
They're easy, because we can only spend what we have.
You don't even spend what you have, it looks like.
Right. We're going to underspend.
So I think we are, that's the summary here, right? We're not even increasing the budget.
No. We have roughly about $112,000 in the Farm Pond fund that we can use. And instead of spending it all, We always put a cushion in case we have an issue come up.
What is, it says here, end-of-year balance is $217,282. So what happens to the other $100,000? What is that?
That's what will fund it this coming year. Isn't that
This is
how
a
it
No,
goes?
this is that whole
Yeah, I
Isn't
never
that the
remember how
whole
this works, but,
Yes, but it's deceiving because we can only fund what we sell in stickers.
And we
Isn't
sell
that how
them in
it
different
goes?
fiscal years, so we sell the
Right.
tickets, going to be in fiscal year 15, and we spend most of the money in fiscal year 16. That is, the end of the fiscal year is June 30th. So we need money,
to appropriate the next year's
For
budget.
next year.
right.
Yeah, and
We
we're,
also have-
I get that, but
Carry
what I'm looking at here is we've got a, this is the box that says fiscal year 2014. We've got a balance forward of $210,000. We've got a 6,400 end-of-year transfer from the budget.
Right.
I assume that's the stickers we sold in that previous fiscal year?
No, that's the stuff we didn't spend, I believe that's the,
Oh, that's what you
what we
didn't
didn't
spend.
spend last
Okay.
year, the year
Then you've got
before.
annual town meeting transfer to the budget of $103,000.
which is the fiscal 14 amount, it's
For
not
next-
15, it's, so we're even
We're
a
in-
year
well, I'm in the
behind.
box for 14, right?
Yeah.
And then we have revenue of 103,000, and we end up with 217. So somehow we're carrying that 200
Right.
plus $1,000 year to year when your budget's 100 and your revenue is about 100. So that's what I'm trying to understand. And even if it was a cash flow issue, that's still twice as much as you would think it should be on its face. So there's got to be something going on.
But when I went to the town accountant, before we even did this budget, to ask her what we actually had available for FY 2016, she told me it was roughly $112,000.
Okay. So how do we carry forward?
Well, the idea always is to carry, well, we always have
200
something
Well, we
that's
carry
over.
forward 210,000 on a budget of.
Yeah, that
100,000.
number, I don't understand.
I don't either.
210,890.
Yeah.
David's going to explain it to
No,
us.
I'm not going to explain it to you, but I know what you mean.
Okay.
Why we're.
You don't have an answer? You have an answer?
Heather might.
So I can take a educated guess.
Okay.
Your fiscal year ends at the end of June. You've done most of your sticker collections to that point, but then you pay salaries July, August, and into September. And you pay all your other expenses basically during the months the pond is in operation.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 100,000, but salaries can
Right.
be up there. So again, I can't quantify, but most of your expenses, I think as Paul just said, are July, August, September, and even into October. But your balance and all of your collections are June, up through basically March, April, and May, right, Jeannie?
Yes.
Right. Most of your
Yes.
revenue comes in
Yes.
March, April, and May. Most of your expenses go out after the fiscal year is ended, July, August, September,
I
October.
get that, but the expenses are clear here. There are 107 is being asked for. There were 97,000 in fiscal 14, and that includes both the salaries and the other expenses. So that's a roughly $100,000 budget item. I'm just not understanding where the 210 balance forward is coming from and the end-of-year balance.
I feel like we ask this every year.
I think we do
right?
too, and I
Right,
just
yeah,
don't know
and
what the
I-
answer is.
I agree. We should, David, we can follow up on that, right?
And the only reason it's important is if we're for some reason carrying an extra $100,000 on the books just as a timing item, it seems
I just don't
unnecessary.
think we do.
Yeah, every time we've asked, it's that we were told that we don't really
We
have
don't.
that, but anyway. I mean,
Okay.
it's a number here for sure. I thought we were told when we came before you last year that we should be trying to build up some reserve for emergency things.
I get that, that's a big reserve, though.
Yes, no, I agree.
If that's the case, then we're all set.
But
But-
let me just
I don't
further
think that's the case.
discuss what was just said here. The revenues that come in, I think here's how you get to the 200,000. The revenues that come in 2015 have to be carried forward to pay for the operation of the pond. There won't be any more revenue until March, April, May, and June of 2016. and that money has got then to replenish what has already been spent.
But this, we've got
So-
an annual budget, Paul, and the ins are 100,000 and the outs are 100,000. So this is
Yes,
like,
but the ins are coming 9 months later.
but
so
then
unless
the
you're
ins
gonna-
from the year before are coming in this year, so there's still this,
Right, that's why you need to have the money come in so that you can spend it, and then you have to replace it, otherwise you have to go out and borrow it.
so we carry an extra $100,000 so we borrow from ourselves, is that what you're talking about?
We're not borrowing from ourselves. It's just a float, basically, in an account. Like if you have a checking account,
Okay, I still
you
don't
don't draw
understand.
the account down to zero, you keep a float in there.
Okay, Paul, so if, again, there's probably an answer to this. It's, unfortunately, we're in between town accountants at this point, but the balance forward is $210,000. If you have $210,000 in the bank on day one, and you get revenue of $100,000 roughly,
Which is going to come next year.
well, some of it comes this year. It's fiscal year, the first day of the fiscal
It's
year.
going to be in March, not the fiscal year that we're talking about. It's going to be at the end of the fiscal year.
It's still during the fiscal year. This box talks about the entire fiscal year. It doesn't just talk about July.
Right, but we have to meet payroll on July 1.
Well, could we get this updated
Oh,
for...
I'm sure you
fi-
can meet payroll when you started with $210,000. You can spend half of that and spend your entire budget for the year, and another 100 comes in during that year.
Would it be helpful if we saw it by quarter, just to see what the balance
Yeah, I
was
mean,
and stuff
anything
coming
would
in?
be helpful here. I'm sure there's an answer to this,
Yeah.
but
And the other piece of this is that I, for one, and I think others, want to see this revenue go towards improvements at the pond. Because many times in the past, we've had to go to general fund to pay for those improvements, and the concept was that this should be standalone and self-sufficient.
that I
Like,
agree with.
For
I
example,
understand that.
just throwing out an example, the parking lot probably needs to be repaved.
Not yet, but sometime.
Sometime soon, the parking lot's going to need to be repaved, and let's say that costs $100,000. I'm just making up numbers, don't cause widespread panic. Are we going to add it to a capital item and then try and get an override for it? Or are we going to ask for some support from Farm Pond on that, and if so, how much? So I think there's been many people who have been saying that the users of Farm Pond should be paying for a lot of the costs of upkeep of the pond, not just the salary of the lifeguards, but any cost associated with the upkeep of the pond, a lot of which have been done apparently in the past, and I don't know what this last year was, but by CM&D, by the general fund, by the Selectmen's office, by all kinds of other different departments and entities. And so I've participated in and heard discussion about making this thing completely self-funded. And that meant that the costs that were being incurred elsewhere should be put here. And sort of another ongoing third issue is that associated with all these expenses, sometimes there are employee expenses that aren't in this particular budget. I know for other communities where we have funds like this, at the end of the year, the town accountant goes back and takes a proportion of other costs, the portion of time that the town administrator spends, and a portion of time the town hall officials and the treasurer and other people for collecting of money and so on, and allocate a overhead charge to the particular funds in the town. I don't know whether we have gotten to the point where we're doing that here or not, but it's sort of standard
I
practice.
would hope it was in the budget if we did it.
We don't charge
I
any
No.
indirect costs back to the farm pond budget.
No, but I would share your desire to see a more enterprise-like funding model like we have at Woodhaven.
Right, well,
for-
that's
for
the
Farm
modern
Pond.
trend with most
Yeah.
towns moving in
Yeah,
that
I like to
direction.
see this, but even, there are some items like it, and it just, I never even thought of it before, but when I saw submitted by Jeannie Guthrie, I know, Jeannie, you spend time on Farm Pond. that is in the selectmen's budget, and geez, maybe it should be part of this budget, it's that sort of thing.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's the modern way of
Yeah.
accounting, and sort of a year-end charge to
Yeah,
all the different funds to allocate the costs used, so you have a true picture of what does it cost to operate Farm Pond.
right.
If we have to have special insurance to protect people from an unfortunate accident at the pond, I'm not saying we do have special insurance, but if we did, it's probably in the insurance budget,
Right.
and at some point, those costs that are special and allocated to the pond should be directly allocated to that. And there's been enough discussion about this over the years that I can see an effort towards building up some reserves in this account in order to be in a position to fully fund.
It looks to me like there's lots of reserves in this account. That's what I want David to answer.
It does, it does. It looks like there's something in there, and I'll have to check it out and see what is being carried forward. But
Well, the
that's-
balance forward is clear from this, unless that's
Yeah.
inaccurate.
But that's the beauty of having things set up as an enterprise fund, where you can see exactly what's going forward, and also
So if
charge
we-
off indirect costs.
So if most of us think that's a good idea to move towards the enterprise fund approach, that sounds like a nice project for the new person coming on board, in addition to all the other stuff, but,
Yeah.
to make it happen, because this isn't the first time we've talked about it and thought that.
No, I
made
think it would
sense.
be great for Farm Pond, Transfer Station, and Woodhaven, all be
Yeah.
separate enterprise
Yeah.
funds.
And don't get me wrong, if this money is here, I'm all for spending it on Farm Pond. I just want to know what's there and.
Right.
I mean, the Farm Pond Advisory Committee knows this is a Board of Selectmen's budget. We try to look at it, review it, see if we see how.
And do we have detail on what we've got for number of people, pay rates, and things like that?
Yes,
I mean,
and
you got
one
pay
of the-
rates, but you don't really, maybe you do to get
That's
to
in
the
back-
math.
That's in the back here. You've got the hourly rate, Peter.
Yeah, but it just doesn't tell you how many people you got. I mean, I guess you could figure it out somehow or other. How many lifeguards you're anticipating in this budget, and
It's more the number of hours
AIDS
of
and so
lifeguards
forth.
rather
For the
than
number of hours, I mean, the lifeguards, some work 40 hours a week, some work 10. I mean, I think it depends on, it's more the amount of
so
hours.
if I just divided, that's the hours that we think are
Yeah.
the right number of
still looking
hours.
And we did take into account that the minimum wage did go up January 1st, so everybody's going to get bumped close to $1, it'll be $1 an hour more.
That's
for
not
the-
reflected on here, is it?
Well,
See, this is the budget.
Yeah, everybody's above minimum
Got it.
wage. I
Yep,
just
yep.
checked that.
for instance, like the gate guards, starting gate guards were paid $8 an hour. They'll
Oh,
now
I see
get
what you're saying, yeah.
$9 an hour.
Yeah. So you
Which means
even,
that the starting lifeguards who used to get $9 an hour will get $10 an hour.
so this is really a blended rate.
It's a blended rate.
So is there detail or there isn't?
As far as the amount of hours,
Well, if you've got a blended rate, that means you've got some new guards, you've got some old guards, you've got
There is
different
detail. There are
rates.
30 or 40 lifeguards, and then we have, 8 to 10 gate guards out of that?
Right, so
We have
that
two rates.
underlies this.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. That's all I was asking, yeah. Good,
Okay, so you've got the questions, David, I think.
groovy.
Well, sort of a related question.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
saying, I was wondering, I was surprised you didn't bring up sticker prices.
That's exactly what I was about to
Uh-oh.
ask, but you were
That's why I'm
talking.
here.
So I gather from Mike's comments about the 100,000 extra that you don't see a pressing need to raise sticker prices at this
Our
point.
committee continues to talk about this. We were definitely heard the comments of this board last year to consider it as a revenue. You didn't say revenue center, nothing that harsh, but we've talked about that all year. But we do still consider this budget to be an operating budget, and as you said, if we're meeting operating expenses, we didn't see a need to increase prices. However, if it was asked of us, and if it's helpful, and we could look at some sort of modeling for what the prices would, what kind of effect prices increases would have across the board. There's swim lesson prices, there's boat permit prices, and there's sticker prices. But the committee right now, it's not a strong support for increasing that. But I think you'd have to ask to what end. Like,
Well, right, I'm not proposing just raising sticker prices, but I am proposing, and I think we've talked about this for a number of years, that Farm Pond be paying for itself
Yes.
completely. And that's not just the operating expenses of lifeguards. That's maintaining the place, cleaning it. If we're going to do geese control, that should be part of this. If there are permits that are required, that needs to be part of it. If amenities there need to be done, if a walkway needs to be done, the ordinary, just like with the schools come in every year with, here are the things that need to be done to keep the schools going. There should be a component to this budget that says, here's what needs to be done this year at Farm Pond to keep it a attractive, useful facility for the public.
well, I think what's in here right now that began to be in this budget, it's not to that point, but it does, we did put maintenance, a line item for maintenance
We did
of
do
the
that last
stormwater
year.
systems to keep it a healthy environment. I don't think there's a whole lot of thought going into making it an improved, attractive, we haven't even had those
But
conversations.
to Paul's point,
but-
I mean, if you did come up with, you could call it capital budget, you could call it a wish list, but it would be things that either are going to fall apart, and you know that, and so you want to plan for fixing them, or things that would be good additions to the facility that we don't have or haven't had for a while, for whatever reason. You should develop that kind of a program and bring it to the town, because a lot of people use that facility.
Definitely.
Well, a lot of people use that facility that don't buy stickers also.
But even on that, the Business Association gave us a grant for a power washer. And that was wonderful that they did that. It just leads me to believe, why wasn't a request for a power washer on budgets going back
That
10 years?
Well, right. That has come from our focusing on trying to protect Farm Pond, and so we did a grant application actually that didn't go through, but to evolve a boat monitoring, boat washing station, and that was one piece of that puzzle that we were trying to drive forward. But the idea of a boat washing station is just something we've more recently are trying to evolve. In our mission to try to help protect Farm Ponds.
The
Right,
power
what
washer
I'm
was we've in the last couple of years tried to make where the boats are washed down.
Very visible and accountable, and this is to try to make that a little bit more.
And the power washer
possible.
will,
That's all good. What I'm suggesting is that this be done systematically. That all the needs of Farm Pond be looked at for, let's say, a 10-year window or a 20-year window. All the things that need to be done, the power washing, maybe bathroom renovations.
New railings, whatever it is.
New railings, whatever it is, there's a program, all be outlined, and then they be costed out. And then we can then look at what does it cost truly to operate this thing. And we also want to have all the costs that are attributed to this facility at least allocated on paper so we know what they are.
I understand that. I think that makes sense. I mean, that accounting exercise for sure. And I
Well-
like what you're saying about the developing. I mean, I know Pat Cassell has been very a strong advocate of the big 10-year, 20-year wish list on our committee. So we could certainly do that if that's.
Yeah, we saw the schools do that nicely, and they set the example pretty well, and I think we're underway a bit in the town building side of the
I mean, it doesn't have to
equation.
be for this budget cycle, but
No.
if you
No,
got
in
it
the bigger
done
picture.
during
Yeah.
the summer or
Yeah.
something like
Now-
that, and
now-
it's ready for next year, it'd be great.
We established the parking sticker fees, but we don't get involved in, I don't know who does, the swim lesson rates and so forth.
last
Who
year.
does that? Do we do that?
Last year I called about 10 towns last year about their swim rates, their lesson rates, and we were right there or even higher.
No, my point is, do we
Yes.
make that? Okay,
Yes.
okay. And weren't we going to do a whole sort of fee discussion at one point, or we never did?
That's supposed to be part of it, yeah.
Right? So that's sort of the big picture we
it's on
got to get
David's
to.
list.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I was wondering, did I forget that, or did I miss that? No, okay.
That could be a good intern.
No, I
project.
think
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah.
started being talked about same time as pay-as-you-throw, and then
Yeah, all
they
that
both
stuff.
kind of-
Yeah, it gets sidetracked easily.
Doesn't have to be tied up with that.
But I think there is a multi-year
Yeah.
objective here, which is to have Farm Pond be completely self-sustaining and eliminate subsidies from the general fund so that it stands alone. And part of that means to identify what the general fund subsidies are. That's an accounting exercise that most communities do for every enterprise fund. In fact, our outside auditors are supposed to bring that to our attention and make sure that it gets done. But beyond the full attribution of costs, there should be this capital improvement, ongoing maintenance piece to it, which needs to get factored in to a budget that's largely personnel costs and not equipment. I mean, do you need a life-saving boat, for example? Well, that's an issue that I haven't heard discussed at all.
Only if it's a rowboat.
The rowboat. We have a rowboat.
You've got that, right?
And you're looking at me, but the Farm Pond Advisory Committee is not involved in any of these, I mean, we're a little bit held at arm's length, quite frankly, from some of the operational side of the Farm Pond budget. I mean, that is David's, what's made very clear to us, that will help when we're asked to, and we fully enjoy a great partnership, but we've not gotten involved in the day-to-day operations, or we're trying not to be as involved. But if we should be, that's great. So I have no idea about a life-saving boat being, we leave that to Jeannie and the reservation manager to do, so.
I would think it would be incorporated into the, I mean, I know it is incorporated into the facilities plan.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. Where are we at with the study?
That's going to be coming, well, where we are at is our committee and a group of experts we've convened have been reviewing it. And then, but that's happening within our committee first, and then we're reviewing it with Norfolk Graham next Friday, and then it will come before you.
Oh, so there is a draft study
There's a draft.
out
We did get a
there?
draft. Passing it among
And this is the study that the town voted for as
Yes.
and it was
As a
20,000
big
plus or
management
minus.
plan.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, management
So
plan.
we've had the draft, it was
Given to
sent-
us in the early December, and
Right.
we've been reviewing
In,
it.
in the draft, in your quick and dirty look, without telling us anything, without, spoiler alert type of thing,
But
anything that pops up along the lines of what Paul's talking about, when you see that, you say, geez, if only we had this, I don't know, eelgrass
no.
harvesting
not
machine
right
or
off.
something.
No.
Okay,
Don't even say those words.
I'm just saying.
No, nothing like that. But I hear what everything's been said. I mean, I like the vision of thinking about what makes Farm Pond a better place. In the summer, we've been trying to, the past 2 or 3 years, we've been thinking about how could we protect Farm Pond as it is, as an entity, year-round, as a place, but not so much worrying about the lovely summer season, which we all love and enjoy, but we can certainly go back to that, or add that in.
But the pond has been, as far as fees coming in, it pays for the
budget.
running, the
Yeah.
budget for Farm Pond.
Yeah.
We haven't had to go to the general fund for a long.
I get what Paul's saying. It doesn't pay for your time, though. We don't pay for it. I understand. It's an accounting exercise that we have to figure out.
Yeah, this is what every community that I work for would take
Cut.
someone like Jeannie, figure out what her proportion is, and that gets allocated to the different activities that she's doing. I'm getting waved at by...
The cameraman.
No, I know. I think that's a bit of a conversation.
Pat, you had something to add, I think.
Yeah.
Pat Cassell, who's on the Farm Pond Committee.
About 10 or so years ago, when Doug was chairman of NEPAC, they did an analysis of the enterprise fund situation, and decided that at that time, no saying we can't do the analysis again, but at that time, they decided it wasn't going to work for the way Sherborn does it. But we can
Well, having been the recipient of that report, what that report was whether or not we should adopt the enterprise fund statute for farm pond operations. I'm not really talking about their legal designation as an enterprise fund or the way they are operating now. The way they're operating now seems fine. All I'm saying is that to say that there may be extra money in there may not be factoring in the long-term objective that those funds are supposed to be weaning farm pond away from general fund subsidies. And one of those subsidies would be Jeannie Guthrie.
Yes. Yep.
And there's two ways to do that. One, do without Jeannie, or better, pay for her for the work that she does.
Those are my free hours.
Yeah. So the model that other communities use, regardless of its legal status as an enterprise fund or a revolving fund or however it's done, is you go through the exercise, you figure out all the costs that are incurred by that operation so that you know what does it cost the community to run this every year. But in running it every year, it's not just the cost of the lifeguards. It's the cost of building rain gardens. It's the cost of keeping the parking lot up and running, plowed. All those kinds of things. So whatever those costs are, they all get allocated and reimbursed. It's not just an accounting exercise. It's to make sure that the fees that are generating by the users pay for all of its impact and all of its costs. And for years that hasn't been happening because the general fund is subsidized and we get grants and all those kinds of things, but like the rain gardens didn't come out of the farm pond budget. We got grants for it, but I think there was sometimes we've had to spend some of our own money. We had to hire experts, I think, from time to time and use funds. You just went to town meeting and got a town meeting vote for experts. That didn't come out of the farm pond budget, did it?
No, that didn't, and that was our argument. It shouldn't. But yeah, right. I do get your point, and I think if that exercise was done, it would be interesting to see how the fees and our revenue collection weighs up against the actual budget. What you're saying is that what we've got here doesn't allocate for all the actual costs of running the town. I fully agree with that. We say we all have that thoughts every time we think about what it takes to sell stickers. I mean, it's up. So I don't know how we get that those numbers. If that's a David and Jeannie thing or yeah. It's a time slicing exercise to get an estimate of your budget.
Seems to me that's something to do after the town meeting and after the fiscal year's over and figure it out for this past year.
Yes, and farm pond slows down.
And we've looked at the fees many times on our committee. There's 60 different 30 different categories of fees for farm pond. We'd welcome your looking at them again and reacquainting yourself with all the ins and outs of them, and maybe those fees, then there's a reason for the fees to change if
Well, at some point, we have to, I guess, set fees for this year, so that'll be a discussion for another meeting.
The fees are set that you're using for this year, yes, essentially?
We are not asking you to change them.
Right, we understand that.
Right.
It's up to us to set the fees every
Yes.
year.
No, but to the extent we change the fees, you're going to need that sooner than later, right? Because
I'm going to need it soon, but
Like,
all
what-
I'm doing next week is ordering the stickers.
Well, it's
Which
not-
doesn't have the
It's
fee
not on our
built into
agenda
it.
today, so let's
Yeah.
just get it on a future agenda.
Yeah.
And let's move on. Oh, we've got a comment or a question? Nancy Hess.
I would urge you to set a fee or not set a fee soon, because we already missed an opportunity to send the flyer out with all of the excise, which is related directly to the sticker.
Yeah.
And Jeannie was going to put the flyer with that, and it wasn't on the selectmen's agenda, and the farm pond committee hadn't been able to grow it yet, puts us behind. We have our real estate going out in a month, so, and it takes a while to get a flyer together and get it stuffed and ready to put the real estate bills in. So I would urge you, and I would urge you for next year to start this process early, so that that can go out with the excise bills and say to people, if you've got an excise bill, you can pay for your sticker online right now and be done. And we missed that opportunity this year. I'd like to see us move a little.
So David, can we get that on the
We tried to this
calendar?
year.
Okay.
So
We tried to do that.
We tried to get a stuffer approved.
Here?
Yeah, you have to, the selectmen have to vote to include a stuffer in those bills.
So
we
you
had
said
a
you tried to get it
potential.
approved. What are you talking about?
We were going to bring it in, but the timing didn't work.
I mean, that's the key question, is if we need to set the rate and be done in time for printing to be able to be stuffed, and your mailing's going out in a month.
And it also has to come to you to approve the stuffer goes in your tax bill.
Understood. So all I would ask is that the people who are in the selectman's office who know when this has to happen, put it on a calendar so that next year it happens on time. So it's not something that we're all carrying around with ourselves.
But it sounds like we need to deal with this in a couple of weeks.
But
Yeah,
just,
the next meeting, I guess.
just to give you the idea of the order of magnitude here, I think my state board is charged 26% of its budget to cover the state's human relations and all those functions, and an additional 13% to cover administrative support. So, and we have a self-sustaining fund. People pay for license fees. So you're looking at something in the nature of substantial proportions get allocated to cover, like just the process of hiring lifeguards. Hiring employees is one that we get charged like 26% for, because it's all done not by us, but there's a whole human relations department and a whole staff and all of that stuff, and their costs then get factored in and divided amongst all state agencies. So this is the way governments operate. It's just we've been trying to move Farm Pond
I think
towards
we
that.
had this discussion last year, and the decision was made not to increase fees based on this kind of an enterprise fund self-sufficiency idea, but to study it for the future. And now we're a year later, and we're still looking at it. So fine, let's look at it going forward. But I think we're a little over, and I think we should move on to the next item, which is Doug Brody, the Veterans Agent. Thanks, Doug.
Oh, handouts, huh, Doug?
Oh, this is good. Thank you, Doug. And hey, thank you, Catherine. And Jeannie, thank you.
Yeah, my budget there. Just want to check the figures on it. So, I'll get that.
You want to take it out?
Yeah, can I borrow it? Because I didn't have it.
Yeah.
You need it?
No.
Can I use it over there?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Elliot.
Well, that's my folder.
Oh, my God. Thank you.
Okay, so Doug, we've got two things, I guess, in front of us. One is just the budget, but the other is you're going to give us an update on the Veterans Tax Write-Off Program. I guess we could take the budget first, if anybody has any
Talk
questions.
about the budget first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
If anybody has
Well,
any
the
questions.
budget is essentially, I think there's an increase in mailing costs because of this new veterans program. Probably we'll be making one or two mailings in the next fiscal year. The mailings this fiscal year will be covered. If necessary, I have sufficient money in the budget, chiefly in my pay, but there's plenty there to pay for the mailing for this time. But for next year, you see, there'll be an increase from $300 to $650 for materials and supplies, and that's for mailing costs, maybe 2 mailings or so on the new program that's going to be starting. Other than that, the budget's the same. I would point out to you one expense there that you see which is carried forward. 2 years ago, it cost $22,000, that was benefits. And I put a place marker in of $3,000 last year, and I'm putting a place marker this year of $3,000. That can come out, it doesn't have to be there, but understand that if something turns up and somebody does qualifies for benefits, the town has to pay. And so I thought it just made sense in case that happened, there'd be something in the budget to cover that. It's certainly not a guarantee that it will, but you just don't know. The town has to pay out the 100% of the amount, and then the state reimburses 75%, so we're left with 25% of that. But that's the reason for that number being in there.
Yeah, let me just reinforce that before you leave that subject, that we have to advance the money.
We advance it, yes.
And we get reimbursed.
Yes.
And the vet should not have to wait. If he needs benefits, there shouldn't be this issue where we have nothing in the budget, and then we start scrambling around trying to figure out where are we going to get the money and who's going to make what funds. The vet is entitled to the benefits. If he qualifies, he's entitled to the benefits. So there needs to be something in here to provide something to get started with.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's the reason for that $3,000.
Yeah, and I think in this example, or this situation that we did encounter where we had the benefits going, which you've explained is no longer needed, but that did pop up. We did have to respond in a timely manner. The 22,000 shows as an actual expense for the fiscal 2014. What's not reflected is the 75% that comes in as miscellaneous revenue on the revenue side of the equation. So the net amount is, as I think you pointed out, was $5,700, which is that net amount turns out is almost the amount that was budgeted. When you look at it that way. So it does, unless we get desperate for finding $1,000 or whatever, as we talked about in the earlier discussion, the placeholder of 3,000, if it's not used, great, it's, turned back to the town.
I mean, obviously, the town has to pay that whole amount out, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire amount has to be paid out, but
and it's
it does
captured
get reimbursed.
this way.
What's the lag on the reimbursement, Doug?
Couple of months.
And what's the amount that you would be apt to pay out in any given month? This 22,000, does that cover the whole year?
That was the total, yeah, but
And that
remember,
covers so it works out to a couple $1,000s a month?
we got 75% of that back.
No, but I'm asking a different question. Was this 12 months, this 22,000, is that over 12 months?
It was $1,941 a month.
Yeah,
A month, okay.
Yeah.
And that was every month. So, and we're not reimbursed for 2 months. So I'm wondering if 3,000 is enough. If you
Oh, I
had
see
a
what you're
veteran,
saying, yeah.
If you had a veteran in need, and you had to pay out for 2 months before the reimbursement started coming in, you would have already paid out $3,800.
Yeah.
So you would be taking it out of another budget. And if that's the number, I don't know why we don't use.
But you'd still take it out of another budget. I don't recall how we did the 22,000 if we did a reserve fund transfer
Might
to
have to
cover
do
that. Because even if we did what you described, it's still whatever you have in the budget. The reimbursement is never going to be netted or reflected here.
It's not complete, it's 75%.
Yeah,
No,
no, but it's captured as a revenue item. It's not captured as an offset to the appropriation. So whether there's a lag or
And
not.
since it's not an enterprise fund, it's not a cash
Yes.
flow issue either.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So this is more just a hedge.
It's a placeholder of a reasonable amount that historically, we've seen another year it got used.
That's what struck me. It doesn't bear any relation to anything historic. We've either been 0 or much higher than 3,000.
Big numbers, right.
But, okay, that's fine.
It's just an attempt.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
But I think Mike makes a good point that 2 months, if 1,900 is...
Paul, we don't know that amount. That happened to be the amount in this particular
okay.
case.
So
but
it's not
the amount's
necessarily
gonna-
the same.
It depends on what the disability is, what the findings are. It could be $200 a month.
Okay.
That was,
You just don't know.
So we really are kind of, in the dark on,
Excuse me?
we're in the dark. We're kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I would say the state is also, and this is subject to appropriation, so that every year we make sure there's money at the state level to pay for the reimbursements. But it could be with a flood of vets coming back, that we'd be in a jam and we'd have to do a supplemental budget and so on. So counting on the money to come in like clockwork isn't guaranteed.
Yes, so I'm comfortable with the 3,000, that's fine. Should we talk now about the program, Doug?
Yeah, if I may.
Well, does anybody else have any comments?
No, that's fine.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah,
I've given you a couple of handouts there to get the program started. Publicity release on the Veterans Tax Write-Off Program, which will go to the newspapers, and I can get them to give us a good headline on it and do a nice job on the publicity. And I would follow that up with the letter that you have, which is to all the Sherborn veterans. We say all Sherborn veterans. We know the veterans in Sherborn who have checked off veterans on their census. It is in my experience that there are other people in town who are veterans who just haven't checked that off, and I have no way of knowing who they are or where they are. But at least we can get to the ones that we know are veterans, and the publicity hopefully will reach those who have not necessarily told us that they're veterans. This would get going pretty quickly. I get it going next month, hopefully, and with the publicity to begin with, and then with the letter to follow maybe a couple of weeks after, a week or so after that. I already have had one request for a veterans for a position in this, from the Recreation Committee. They're interested in having someone run the scoreboard down during the baseball games the kids play down there, and it would be a regular gig, three times a week, so which could potentially be something that would be interesting for a veteran to do.
Just one comment here. I think the minimum wage has gone up from $8. It's now, I think, $9.
I can't hear you, Paul, I'm sorry.
I think the minimum wage has gone up.
Oh, it has?
I don't think
think
it's
so,
$8.
too.
I
Yeah.
think it's gone to $9.
Okay, well, I will amend that then to the minimum wage, thank you.
Do you know what the minimum wage is now, Dave?
I thought it was 8. You mean the new one?
Yeah,
That's 9.
it's 9.
Yeah.
And that was approved, wasn't it, Paul? Didn't?
Yeah,
think
we
state
passed a
approved it?
multi-stage, so it's
It's
going up
supposed to go up
$1 each year, so it's 9. I think
think
it's
it's
9 for
9.
the upcoming year, then it's going
I
to be
think
10 for the year after that, and then 11 for the year after that.
Yeah.
So they're phasing in a pretty significant increase in the minimum wage.
And when someone asks what OBRA is, OBRA, O-B-R-A,
Yeah, yes, subject to OBRA, yes, and yeah, it is.
so when someone asks what that means,
Yeah.
should you define it?
Yeah, they'll just like the senior program, exactly the same.
All right.
okay,
Okay,
that's great, yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Just a quick
Elliot,
question.
yes.
If someone is a veteran, they can notify you at the
Yeah.
town hall veterans agent, and just say, I am a veteran, such and such a enlistment date,
Yeah.
and whatever, and mail it to you, and then you can get in touch with them for any...
That's right, they have to fill, they will then get us, we have an application that we put together, which goes into all the details and all the requirements for...
Okay, so notify you at the veterans agent
That's
town
right,
hall.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay, great. Chief Morrissey, you are up next. Thank you for your patience. We're right on time.
It's funny how that happens sometimes. You too, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you.
Okay, so this is, what's the percentage on this, David?
1.5,
This is the 1.5, okay.
Yep. right on the money. Really, the only change in the fire department budget is I looked for another $1,100 in our computer maintenance with the 1.5%. A lot of our programs, software, we share with the police department, so there's the licensing fees. We're trying to get some of our backup onto the cloud so that if we ever had any server issues, it's been strongly recommended both by Kevin Whitman and Ben and my IT person, Klaus, at the firehouse to get a lot of our stuff onto the cloud for using like Carbonite and a lot of our other programs and such, so that we have that redundancy, that backup if anything were to go down. Some of our, we have older softwares that we have in reserve that we don't use anymore, but yet there's data on that we need. Plus our new software that we've been using the past couple of years with the police department. So, of course, anything with computers these days and technology, it just keeps going up every year, although we do try to manage it very well. And the fact that we've only had a computer maintenance account since 13 anyways, and that was just an approximation. So we're kind of still trying to find where the level playing ground with the computer account is.
How are you doing on your fiscal 2015 budget? Are you on track or ahead?
We're on track with that, yep.
Okay.
It's been a good, again, it's been a good year. We haven't had any bad storms. We haven't had any major fires. We haven't had any major incidences. Knocking on wood, including this week.
I have a big concern about this budget. I mean, some years ago, we got involved with a FLSA investigation from the United States. They looked at us and they said, when you take the amount of time that people were required to be in the station and so on, we didn't meet the then guidelines for minimum wage and overtime.
Right.
Those are going up to $9 an hour, and I saw a reference here that it's corrected to $7 and something, but it needs to be corrected to $9.
We've been paying federal minimum wage since before I got hired. Now, we did, just as of December 25th, we went up $1 an hour. So the hourly employees, Monday through Friday, the part-time ambulance, EMS,
it's not going to be enough.
are at $8.46.
It's not enough. The federal minimum wage is fine. It's a good defense to an investigation by the United States. But the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is saying they want everybody to be $9. And $8.46 is not $9.
Okay. To go up
now, theoretically, you could say that there are all kinds of defenses, how many hours, what people are doing, but aren't we better off going to pay minimum wage?
Yeah. And I can go up another 50 cents an hour at about $8,000 and still be within our budget.
Within the 1.5%.
Pardon me? Yeah, with what we're currently at, because we have been below cost because of calls and such, and because I've been able to use a little grant money for like fire prevention and some safety visits with people. So last year I was able, to stay under with our hourly. That's how the beginning of this year we were able to say I want to at least get up another $1 an hour. Yeah, I've been trying, using the budget we have and just being on board for the past, 16 months, 15 months or so, looking at the salaries, but also realizing, there's other costs involved, and try to make, stay within advisory's parameters. Well, I think we can go up the other $8,000 and still be within the 1.5%.
So you're saying you can absorb the 8,000 in the numbers that we're looking at here?
Yeah, for as long as, again, we don't have a major run of calls, that we don't get hit with some major weather. There's a lot of what ifs, and David and I had talked about that back in November.
But if that happens, it's not the increment for the minimum wage, it's the full salary.
Right. Then we get into some of the $20 an hour for the fire calls and such like that.
But before you get there, just from a legal point of view, I don't want to see any document in the town of Sherborn that has $7 XX per hour listed in it, because that by itself would violate both federal law and state law, and
Okay, well, these were set, again, before I came in to take the job and with the approval of, I guess,
I
the
understand
board.
that. I'm only talking about the paperwork. Could you take this out of the paperwork?
Sure.
It's on Form 5, you know what he's looking at. You look at the Form 5 there, there's a note at the bottom that's highlighted, it says corrected
Okay,
to 7.
I don't have that with me today, but I probably have that back
What
at
does
the office.
what does that even pertain to? Because the line it's across from is an hourly rate of $37.83.
David, which line's that?
We're talking about this form. So
5110-0180, daytime EMTs.
I don't know what that is.
I'm just reading
If you look
across.
over on the right-hand side where that statement is of $7
Yeah.
XX per hour.
It's just a note that's in the middle of Form 5 that we just
it also says
take
check
out.
this out. So I have no
Okay.
idea.
Yeah.
This looks like it came off of a bad internet site or something.
Just like,
No, it's either my notes or Ruth's notes.
I
that
think
were
those are
in the-
Ruth's
Those are
notes.
Ruth's
And
notes.
that was actually asked to be taken out last year. So I'm surprised it is still there.
All right, but it doesn't look like it's relevant to anything on this page even.
I just don't want any documents in the town.
Oh, I
that
agree.
look on its face like
Right.
we are.
On the
violating-
contrary, we're working very hard to, one, be competitive, because commercial ambulance services are paying their EMTs in the neighborhood of $14, $15, $16 an hour. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can financially do right now, but
So how did you get the rate that you're paying, the 856 or whatever it was you said, for the,
current one, just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's $1 on top of what was established prior to.
time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the FLSA agreement that the town had made.
Yeah.
That was the rate that was established.
so Paul, can we just, before we start paying out the extra, or can we quickly find out if it is prudent? I mean, it probably is prudent. I'm not suggesting it's not prudent to go to the Massachusetts minimum wage rate of $9 an hour here to be fully protected from any violations. But to the extent we don't have to, if somebody, I don't know if that's town council or what, that would be expert on this, just to ask that question, that's all I'm suggesting, to confirm that it is necessary as opposed to it, and/or it may not be necessary, but it's advised as a smart thing to do to keep us out of trouble.
Absolutely don't have a problem with you doing.
Yeah, because it's a good
Getting all the
pickup on your
information
part.
that you need to
Yeah.
make a good decision.
David, your TA recommendation column looks like it includes no expenses, just salaries. Is that a final recommendation? And I'm trying to understand why it looks like that.
There's nothing, I didn't do anything in those columns.
Okay, well, there's a
Shouldn't
lot
be
of blank
anything.
columns, and the total at the bottom doesn't reflect the request, so.
It should just be under the FY 2016 request.
Okay, so we're going to take this column out, or
Yeah.
fix it or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
This thing here, yeah.
Well, it may be that if we decided to have a different number, that's where it would go. So if the board voted instead of 52,000, let's say.
I'm just asking what TA's recommendation.
No, I tried to track different phases of the budget development last year, and some of it's still stuck in the sheets, and it didn't work. So the easiest thing and the least confusing for everyone is if there is a change, to change the request column.
Could I ask the
Yeah,
chief a
Peter.
couple of general questions? Just to help knuckleheads like me, who, people say, well, what's your fire department like? My first reaction is to say it's a volunteer fire department. So, but we aren't. We're an on-call fire
Paid
department.
on call.
So I want you to give a brief overview of how that works, as
Sure.
well as we do have, officers are stipended, and how that works or what that's for and so
No
forth.
problem. We're considered a paid-on-call department. I'm the only full-time person.
Right.
Everyone else is considered paid-on-call, part-time EMT. Monday through Friday during the day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we run with part-time EMTs. They're the hourly EMT that we were just discussing.
Yeah.
Night times and weekends, local staff members, either EMTs or firefighter EMTs pick up shifts from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Right through the weekend. And
How
then
many
we,
guys do you typically, how many men or women do you typically have on duty at night, for example?
at night for the ambulance, it's 2 for the ambulance. The ambulance, so the ambulance is covered 7 days a week,
Yeah,
24/7. We have a crew for the ambulance already
Yeah.
scheduled.
yeah.
That goes out on a regular basis. And then the department has roughly around 40, 44 members. Many of them are EMT and firefighters. Some are just EMT, some are just firefighters. We're operating the 2 stations, and then we, so we have the apparatus at Farm Road and then the ambulance and the apparatus down at North Main Street. Obviously, there's an organizational structure, chief, an assistant and deputy chief, 2 captains. One handles training and the fire side of the department. The other is the EMS officer, captain, who handles the EMS scheduling and the EMS, the overall running of the EMS side of it. Then the lieutenants for the individual companies as well as EMS, so they support the captain. So we have the top-down structure. Everything comes back to myself and the officers. We have monthly officer meetings. The officers obviously get a stipend for maintaining their companies, and the stipend's dependent on the level that they're at, from lieutenant on up to captain, because of their responsibilities that they have to do either on a daily basis or a weekly basis and a monthly basis.
Great. What happened to the old command vehicle?
It's still there.
Still there? So how do
Still
we
there.
use that, or what do we use that?
Yep, yeah, that command vehicle actually is very useful because the weekend duty officers, on the weekends, the captains and the assistant chief, the deputy chief, do the coverage. They handle the coverage from Friday night until Monday morning for the EMS calls, the fire calls, whatever, the routine stuff that goes on and everything. They handle, take command, go to the calls, make sure the paperwork's done, call for additional resources, whatever, routine stuff. So they use the command vehicle on the weekends, and that's their support vehicle. During the week, we use that as an extra vehicle, and when I have, like right now, I have 2 members going to the academy. The academy's not being held at Stowe right now for whatever reasons. I think they're doing some maintenance this winter, so they're having it up on the North Shore. So we're working out with them to be able to use the staff cars so they can drive up to the academy. They're going to the academy Saturdays and 2 nights a week for 6 months to get their firefighter 1 and 2 on their own time.
Yeah.
Plus their regular jobs that they have, and still pulling a shift with us. So it's a big extra burden for them. The least I can do is let them take the staff car, working out a schedule with the officers, and of course to go up there. And it still runs.
There you go.
It's got a few miles on it, but Warren takes care of the oil change.
Still running, yeah.
You bet.
That's good. How's the new heating system working out?
We're doing pretty good with that, but we have a couple of little glitches that we're still working out with. The old control system for the dampers doesn't like to play with the new system. So the new controls for the efficiency heaters, the boiler, the Johnson controls are a little dated, and the signals they get sent sometimes don't open them up all the way. So I've been told there's a couple of parts on order to try to make it all play nice. So we're at 99 and 99, 44, 100
Mostly
still.
happy, yeah.
But once in a while, the plumbing guy that we had hired comes in and has to tweak something.
Okay, and one last question, status of the new truck?
New truck is on order.
All right.
We met last week went through the line by line. The order's already been placed, and a meeting with the rep again tomorrow. We'll probably be going out to South Dakota for a first visit on that in the near future to make sure that we're all on page with the plans and the builders, and so, and that's included as part of the deal. We get 2 trips out there. So we're going to have one in the beginning, and then there'll be one probably at the 3/4 mark. And if all goes well between Thanksgiving and Christmas,
So 10 months away, roughly.
we hope, yeah.
or 10,
I mean, it's a big
months.
truck.
Yeah.
And a lot always has to do with when the chassis arrives. When they have their chassis built is when they really go to town on that. And it all depends on where we are in the key for lined up on orders, so.
Gotcha. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Further?
You got a great department. It generates revenue on the rescue side, significant dollars. And my impression is the department's doing well, it's well managed. And so the budget's reasonable, it's within guidelines. I'm happy.
They're out behind the firehouse tonight in the old skating pond doing ice rescue. So we got a couple of people swimming in the pond back there, and the rest of the guys out there with ropes and rescuing them. So
Better them than us, that's all I got.
that'll put a warm feeling in your heart tonight.
Good for them.
I just wanted to point out, under the ambulance receipts, that's something that we continually have to look at and try to appropriate more from that if the balance goes up. And this was an increase from the previous year. I think it had been much lower for quite a while.
Yeah, and we are also looking at, without getting into specifics, but I had talked with David, and we're looking at some other avenues to hopefully increase that without any pressure on, there's no pressure on anybody, just to make sure that we're having the due diligence done for the appropriate billing and the appropriate insurance companies. So
That's great.
we do keep very tight tabs on that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Great. Okay, Karen, on aging.
Hi.
How are you? Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Sheila Bresnahan is our new treasurer. Sheila came on board to help out after the passing of Paul Leach. So we're very appreciative that she's taken on the task. So, the Council on Aging continues to attract new seniors with our programming. We have a number of new programs this year. We have the Matter of Balance class, which is taught by 2 physical therapists, which was grant funded from the Metro West Health Foundation. That was a collaborative grant with Holliston and Dover. We have, thanks to an Eagle Scout, a bocce court, which is over at Woodhaven. And so we have a bocce program going, weather permitting. It will start up again in the spring and run through the fall. We do have a nice competition going on with our friends over in Dover. So that's a lot of fun. We
What,
attract.
they don't play in 33 inches of snow?
You know, if we could just get CM&D down there and plow that out for us, we'd be all set. We also have a walking group, which is grant funded through Bay Path Elder Services, and that goes out weekly, spring, summer, and fall, and in the winter, we go out twice a month. We're going and walking when the weather's nice outside, but when the weather gets to be a little bit more challenging, we took a walk through the Wellesley Greenhouse over at Wellesley College. We're going to the Gardner Museum. So we're trying to find alternate venues which will keep people out and active. We also have a pizza and a movie program, which is student-funded by one of our Dover Sherborn high school volunteers, Sarah Stevens, and she comes monthly over to Woodhaven, provides the pizza, provides the movie, and we get a good group of folks. So we're very thankful to Sarah. She's doing an excellent job. As far as our other services, as you know, we have Breakfast with the Selectmen coming up next Friday. I'll put a plug in for the chairman who is going to be coming, so we look forward to that at 8:30. Our transportation services takes seniors into Boston for medical appointments as well as locally, which is a huge help to them. They're very appreciative of especially going into Boston. Not many towns have that accessibility, so we're very appreciative of that. We do home-delivered meals with our relationship with the Leonard Morris campus of Metro West Hospital. We have our weekly drop-in lunch program over at Pilgrim Church. Again, that is mostly funded through volunteer cooks, although this year We have been very fortunate. Kathy Horgendye, who's our new drop-in coordinator, has been making significant inroads with the assisted living facilities in the area, as well as the rehabilitation organizations. And so we get a meal provided once a month, which is another help to us in our budget. We have 3 fitness programs, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, aerobics and yoga, and then we have a relationship with the Longfellow Sports Club. On Friday, we have water aerobics. Our seniors are invited and welcome to go. We have 2 bridge programs, one on Thursdays during the day, twice a month, and then the evening party bridge for folks who are still working. They could do once a month. We have a legal referral program, thanks to George Shea. We have our Medicare program, thanks to Sonia Hicks. And we have our medical closet, which loans free medical supplies to any Sherborn resident. You don't have to be a senior. If you've had your hip replaced or a knee done because you had an old football or soccer injury, give us a call. Audrey Raycroft does an excellent job taking care of our medical closet. We have our Lunch Bunch program twice a week over at Woodhaven. We have Witchcrafters, which is our Finish Up Your Craft program, which is once a week at Woodhaven as well. And not only do they finish up their crafts, but they provide donated crafts, whether it's sweaters or scarves or dolls, down to Appalachia, and the folks down there are very appreciative of their efforts. And finally, we have our outreach services, which services homebound seniors, hospital discharge assistance for folks coming back, and then we provide assistance to adult children who have questions about seniors in the area. We also have a home safety program with our fire and EMS group. They go out to the homes, they do evaluation. Tim was able to secure another grant, so we're very grateful to Sherborn Fire for helping us get out into the homes of seniors. And we have trips and programs to Tanglewood and the Charles River Cruise and other museums in the area. We have a podiatrist and Shared Sunday, which is our Sunday program over at Woodhaven. And that's kind of our laundry list of things that we're doing. And that's why I'm asking you for money.
The amount that's in your book was the original department request from the Council on Aging. In the model, I have just the 1.5% that's increased. And I think you were looking for more time.
We are. We're currently speaking with the Personnel Board in terms of what we find may be a good solution. And so once we have come to some agreement with them, we would like to come back and talk to you about their recommendations and findings. So if we could just concentrate on the bottom half of my budget and leave the personnel service line for another evening.
But just to clarify, you're not, are you asking, because David says you're asking for more time, but you're asking for rate changes is what is in here right now that we're not going to focus on.
That is correct.
But it's not time, it's rate is really what you're talking about.
That's correct.
And so when you come back, hopefully, the question was, have you talked to personnel and gotten where they're at? So you're doing that, that's
Right.
great. And you'll come back with why you think this is the right way to go, because, you know, it'd be looking for justification. And then the question is, if not, if you don't get what makes sense and you think ought to go, where you're going to be. Those are things I'd be looking to learn about when we're ready to talk about those things.
Right.
All right, does that
And
make
I had a
sense?
similar question. If you're talking about rate, but you also mentioned that the utilization is up, so that would imply more time or more positions, but instead you're requesting increases for existing positions, but not any more time or more positions, which is a little inconsistent with that explanation, so.
We'll talk to personnel and we will bring you the whole discussion that we're having.
Selling proposition.
It's been the position of the board not to bring people into the benefited insurance pension category. And it's also apparent that a lot of people are putting in more time than they're getting paid. So part of the pay increases I would see from just an outsider looking in, is that a lot of people are putting a lot of effort, more than what the hours are allocated, and so they deserve a little more in recognition of that. If you change the hours to go over 20 hours, now you're dealing not only with pay increases, but you're dealing with all kinds of insurance and pension and OPEB implications that make it very costly.
Nobody's suggested doing that, Paul. No one has suggested doing
Well, I
that.
thought you were saying do more hours.
No, I'm looking for a justification for pay increase. Because what you just explained about extra hours is not in here. That's not in here. So you're going to come back with an explanation on that, and we'll understand it better.
We've done a survey from all the other different towns surrounding Sherborn. David gave us a list of all the different towns that the police had used and the fire department had used for their salary reviews. So we did the same thing. So we're going to put all that together and then meet up with the personnel board and have a discussion and see what comes out of that.
Are your programs restricted to Sherborn residents, or are they open to people from other communities?
There's an asterisk just next to that. Some of our programs...
Next to what?
Our programs.
Okay.
Some of them are our outreach, our discussions with adult children. Those are specifically Sherborn residents or adult children of Sherborn residents. Our drop-in lunch program, we welcome seniors from other areas. Our lifetime learning, we welcome seniors from other areas.
And is there reciprocity with other
Yes,
places too? Is
absolutely.
that why that works?
Every COA in the Metro West area has an open door policy, which is, it's more important for us to get a senior who is isolated in and socialized than we care where he or she is from.
As long as it's reciprocal, that makes
Yes,
sense.
it
We
absolutely.
have a lot of seniors that go to the new Natick Senior Center. You know, they have a lot of exercise programs over there that are, ours are more for more elderly. Natick has ones for younger seniors, so a lot of people go there and do their exercise programs.
Yeah,
So-
Dover has Zumba Gold, which attracts a younger group. There's a Tai Chi program over in Holliston. Some of our folks go over there. On the flip side, we get an awful lot of people in for our lifetime learning courses. They come as way from Hudson and Southborough. We have folks coming from Medfield and Millis and Medway. And these are all paying customers for us. We do charge a tuition, so that program pays for itself, so we're very excited
When you
about
say
that.
it pays for itself, and going back to a discussion we had earlier with Farm Pond, does it pay for your time administering that, or any of the other staff time administering that program?
It pays a little. It doesn't pay, it wouldn't pay totally for...
Well, is there a way to boost up the fees a little bit to make sure that that time is covered?
There, you kind of come to a break-even point with what the market will bear, and our costs are pretty much in line with other lifetime learning courses in Wellesley, in Dover, and in the Framingham, Natick areas. So for us to go up another $5, $10, $15 to cover that cost, we would reduce the amount of participants.
Okay.
They do have opportunities to charge off expenses and salaries to grants to some extent.
Do we have grants for those? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's not. I don't think it lists it there.
I was going to say, I'm not seeing those in here
No.
either.
We don't have any grants for the lifetime learning program.
No, I think David was making a general point. I see one grant for $2,000.
We have two grants. We had them, well, you don't see the grant money that we got for Matter of Balance because that was funded through Holliston. It was a collaborative
Right, I
grant.
remember that,
And
yep.
all the money is going through them. Our walking grant was funded through Bay Path, and that's about $3,000.
But to the extent you have out-of-pocket costs, like lifetime learning, you pay a lecturer or somebody, the fees, and that's really what you're saying, is the fees that you generate from participants covers those out-of-pocket costs for the most part. The budget reflects the out-of-pocket costs, the fees are captured somewhere else. Correct? Am I correct in that, David? so that when you, the fees, the tuitions that people pay for lifetime learning
Right.
aren't netted with your cost for delivering that service.
It would be good to know for each of these programs, not just you, but for all these programs, if there is revenue, we should have that as part of this.
It's right on the
Some
front
of-
page. It says COA lifetime learning.
Some of it does, but we didn't
Some
see it
do,
in
some
every-
don't.
Yeah,
And
some of
I'm
them
not
don't.
sure, some of the numbers show the wrong year, but I haven't checked the data, so it needs to
This
have.
needs to be updated. We're in between, as we know, and that's why we've got,
So we've
you know,
got kind of,
poor Paul is still listed on here as
yeah.
submitting things and so forth.
No, I mean, I
Yeah.
really do appreciate the explanations in the back. I think this was
Yeah.
was
all good
great,
stuff.
and it's, it's a good description of your programs. It's a good key to what the different line items mean, so thank you for that.
I think what would be helpful is if you had a full revenue projection that was
Yeah.
included in your budget book,
Yeah.
so you could see what
Yeah.
was coming in.
Now, you don't provide, here's every time we talk budgets, we're not providing nursing services,
No, we are
correct?
not.
All right,
We are not.
because we're not in the patient
No, we are not
care
in the,
business.
we are not in the nursing home care delivery service, no.
Right.
But what she does do is she helps seniors when they come home from the hospital and they get their discharge papers,
What do you do
what
next?
do you do next?
Yes,
Who should I call for?
Right, right.
That's exactly her
right,
role.
right, that's good. And can you just describe you're in the in part, I mean, I think your statement of goals is very interesting, so, very good. So I'd ask you to read that, just so people fully understand it, if you have it, or want me to read it?
Yes.
It is the mission of the Council on Aging to provide advocacy and support systems for senior citizens of Sherborn by working with them toward the ultimate goal of maintenance, independence, and improvement of their quality of life. The council works to continually assess the needs of the elderly and develop services to meet those needs. The funding made available to the council is for the purpose of coordinating and carrying out programs designed to meet the needs of the aging in cooperation with programs of the Commission on Aging. So it's always good to remember that.
Well, on that line, I'd like to say how pleasing it is to see all the different programs that you presented in your initial remarks here tonight. Quite an impressive range of programs. And I also think we should recognize the Council on Aging for helping so many of our seniors, and we should recognize a very large group of volunteers.
Absolutely.
I've been to these volunteer lunches that are packed with people who put in time to care for our seniors. So that one of the things that we can say with some pride is that as a community, we do care for our seniors, and we do have you guys and some structure in place to try and make life as good as possible for those seniors who continue to live in Sherborn.
And they'll help keep our budget down. People donate meals for, Thursday lunches. None of those meals are paid for by the town. Somebody is bringing in those meals every week, so that's huge.
I also want
Maybe
to.
up to 50 people.
I want to point out that Karen was part of our team on the emergency preparations for the storm, so thank you for that.
Thank you. And I also want to thank both the police. We had a senior who went missing on Friday night, and they helped tremendously. So I want to thank the chief and all the officers in charge. That was, happening at 5 o'clock on Friday night when the snow was there. But boy, they did a fabulous job tracking her down, making sure she got back home safely. So I want to specifically thank him. The fire chief with his alerts, we made calls all day Tuesday and half the day Wednesday from our homes, checking in with seniors, making sure they were okay. And then Ed did a great job over at Woodhaven. All the ladies said, you know what, we heard those plows all night long, and they did a great job. So, it's a team effort, and we have great folks that are first responders, so I want to thank them as well.
That's great, thank you. What's next, David?
So I think we're good, right?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Well done.
you down the road.
The next item on the agenda is a group of budgets falling under the Board of Selectmen. The first one would be town buildings, which you had originally looked at, but we went back and looked at, and there were a couple of formulas missing in the columns, so the amounts were incorrect, which prompted me to go through the whole budget again and revise a few amounts. So now the budget is up to $204,000, and that is up 3%.
So for our viewers here, we're talking about Town Hall, the police station, the fire station, and the CM&D garage under the title of town buildings. We're not looking at things like the library or the schools or other potential assets of the town, recreation, conservation, any of those things. We're just looking at basically these 4 buildings.
Right.
And these are administered by the town administrator?
Yes.
So do we have a building guy somewhere other than yourself?
No. Apparently, there was a position several years ago that was like a part-time buildings person. But now when we have an issue in a building or a library that falls under this budget, we call in a contractor to review it. We had an architect kind of paying him on as a consultant for some larger projects, and he's helped put together a long-term capital improvement plan to take care of the buildings. But it's up to Diane and I to, when bills come in, to see what is charged here and to try to make sure that we're ahead of it. But it seems like anything that we're planning on, for instance, we were hoping to replace the carpeting. We included that 10 grand as part of the FY15, the current year budget. And then we had about $8,000 or $9,000 in unexpected server replacements that had to be paid out of the town buildings. So that's why we have a capital request in for the carpeting. Hopefully we'll have money left over, which there's usually always left over money in town buildings. And we will hopefully pay for the carpet in the current year and then withdraw the capital item, but we won't know that till later in the fiscal year.
If we get new carpet, we can cut out the rug cleaning, maybe.
Well, it's not new carpet everywhere.
Yeah, it's only be in this room, but this carpet, once you go outside the room.
So David, I'm baffled by one thing on here, which is the heating and fuel costs. I mean, have you gotten a better, they just fluctuate so much from year to year, and they've gone down each of the last 2 years in terms of what the appropriations are. Have you gotten a better handle on what fuel costs should be or something, or is this just a wild guess? I don't know, it went from 4,500 to 3,000 to 1,500.
It's still, you know, I don't know if things are being, you know, charged to the correct accounts or the correct buildings. I still have to look at that, but what we did do is try to get an overall picture on electricity.
Okay.
So that's one spot that I may be able to reduce.
Okay.
And I've asked for, from the accountant's office, for a breakdown of all the current year electricity. And if we can, it should show a savings over last year.
Why? Yes, it just went up 35%.
Yeah, but there were a number of initiatives that took place.
In the building from the Green Communities program.
Yeah, in all the buildings. So if it, I'm hoping that there's some sort of reduction in there. And the same in the heating fuel.
Okay. Peter, anything?
No, that was the only thing I was really concerned about is, well, the electricity and the fuels looked like to me, based on actuals that we see, and we don't have current year actuals, where those costs have changed significantly, both down and up, depending on what you're looking at. But it sounds like David's taken a real close look and is pretty comfortable that we're likely to beat or meet the budget there for those two items in all those buildings.
Yeah, and
overall.
the heat item looks like it comes completely out of the fire station. If you look
The
at
big number,
If you look
yeah.
at the breakdown, well, the only reduction is fire station, but there's a significant reduction at fire station.
Yeah, so the.
In
so
town
that's-
hall.
Yeah, so that's all, you know, a little, it's dicey trying to look in the crystal ball on that sort of stuff. And so look, an analysis that you have underway or have already been doing is worthwhile. The other thing is just and I don't see it in the actuals, but it seemed to me last year, bulk of last year, we were forever paying bills for alarm repairs and for elevator repairs to the tune of, I don't know, I had Diane summarize it for the last, for a 6-month period or something. It was like 30 grand. And I don't, I'm not quite appreciating where that reality is captured here, either in the actuals nor, neither in the actuals nor in the budget projections. I just don't know where that is, or if that's something we ought to be sure we factored in here somehow.
Well, at some point, as part of a capital plan, I'm going to have to bring forward a whole alarm replacement. I'm pretty sure we're not on a service contract because of the age of the existing system.
Yeah.
But we do have an agreed-upon rate, but it's not a flat-price service. plan.
And on the capital plan, have we seen that?
No.
No, okay.
No.
That
Good.
was gonna
That's
be-
another thing I was like, have I missed that one too, or forgotten that one?
That was what I was going to ask, is that I would like, this is a maintenance budget, as I see it. It's got an item for new equipment that is going up to $6,000, and I wondered what the new equipment was, but more long-term, the only way that you can truly maintain a building is not just, vacuuming and pumping out septic systems and stuff like that. You actually need to constantly invest in things like painting and new carpeting and all of those things. So my first question would be, what is the slight bump in equipment?
I don't have it itemized that much. It's
Just a couple
Diane and
$1,000, so yeah, what did you have in mind?
Yeah. It's usually computers. I mean, we just did a $6,000 server at the police department. But no, I didn't have it itemized out like that.
But it's 3210, so it's got to be itemized to some extent, because otherwise you wouldn't have it end with 10.
But more broadly, going to the point that Peter made, for us to maintain these buildings, I mean, I was on this board, when I first got on this board, all the town assets were in deplorable state. And so I spent like the first 10 years on this board going to the voters, asking them to upgrade everything. Everything had to be upgraded, from the schools, the town hall, to all, the fire station, the police station had to be built, all of this stuff had to be done. So I would like to see a 10 or 20-year plan, like I was talking about with Farm Pond, about how we're going to keep these buildings current, and then we need to figure out, are we going to factor that in to this budget with more money? I mean, maybe $10,000 a year would do it. Or are we going to put that in with the capital programs that are being offered every year by the schools, so that we've got a town capital program to match it all, so that all the work
Right.
for these facilities are are kind of grouped together.
We've inventoried all the buildings, and we have estimated amounts in the fiscal years when we would need to do things. But it's coming up with those bundles of how much is appropriate each year. For example, there's something we were looking at this year was an energy management system that would go in all the buildings, and it would correct the issue that the fire chief was talking about. But it's about $85,000, and so we're going to put that as part of the bundle for next year. But
Well, what's the payback on that, something like that?
on an energy management system,
Well, yeah,
I don't have that off my
yeah, I mean,
top
because
of
we
my
want to
head.
know that, probably.
But if there's any payback, then you can probably get a Greens Community funding round to cover the cost of it entirely,
Mhm.
rather than rely on the taxpayers.
Yeah. But in the past, it's been an amount approved, and it rarely seems
But
to match.
David, you have I think you just described that you've compiled a lot of information, and you're just trying to figure out where to smooth out when you do stuff that it appears your analysis that
I
you've
think
had
I
done.
sent that out at one time.
You may have, but that's worth, maybe touching it up a little bit perhaps and saying, here's where you're at with the thing that
Right.
does talk to all the things that Paul's talking about on these buildings.
Right. It's supposed to go to Capital Budget Committee on the 10th, so I would have that document printed out in some sort
Oh,
of
good.
understandable. And then the supplemental handout I have for you tonight has the capital requests for, that are under the Board of Selectmen for this year.
This budget, this
Yeah.
annual meeting. town
Right.
meeting. Yeah, gotcha.
I'm just concerned that this budget is a bare bones status quo, but everything sort of gets a year older and kind of
It is,
slowly sinking.
what it's been for,
Yeah.
I don't know how many years.
It's true.
But
Well, and even when you think,
invest in our assets.
yeah, if you think of the CM&D garage, it's no longer new. So I would expect reality to be showing that what we've enjoyed in the past for lower costs of maintenance and repairs and so forth will continue to ramp up as the place gets older and stuff gets worn out.
Yeah, well, when we built this town hall, rebuilt this a number of years ago, but as I look at the walls, I mean, they're all scuffed, and so when is our regular
Yeah.
repainting of this? Do we paint it every 4 years? Do we paint it every 5 years? My sense is, it's never been painted.
Every 30 years.
Yeah, and that's not a wise way to proceed with assets like this. That's all I'm saying. So I'd like to see that component that Peter's talking about with the overall budget, because I'm not sure that a $6,000 new equipment line item is really going to be adequate. I mean, does new equipment include the carpet or not? Where's the $10,000?
Well, if you have,
Capital.
the 10,000 for next year is not in the operations budget, it's in the capital budget.
For the carpet. It's a
Right.
capital, it's a warrant article.
Right.
Because you think the carpet's going to last that long?
Well, it's what,
It
5
should.
years, $10,000 in 5 years. That's,
If it
you
doesn't,
could
we
argue
get-
it's a wear away, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You get that.
but even if it is going to last 5 years, I would say we should be putting aside $20,000 a year, at 20% a year of that cost, so that at the end of 5 years, we have the money to replace it. It's depreciating 20% a year.
And David, this maintenance contract for cleaning, I mean, that's another example of what Paul's talking about. So we have a maintenance contract, $25,000 for cleaning. I guess that just gets things clean. That seems like an awful lot, though, for just this building.
No, they do police.
Okay, but it's being carried under just our building, is that right?
Right.
Okay, all right. Well, that
But
makes more sense.
it's off a state contract, and we try to negotiate with them each year not to go up on the contract.
I see. Does that include cleaning for the library?
Yes, they do go over there. I don't know exactly how much they do over there.
I mean, the library needs cleaning, it's just a question of whose budget it's
Right.
falling on.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
Big number, you're right.
It's a big number. Cleaning.
$10,000 for telephones seems kind of high to me, but our actuals are running pretty high.
Well, I don't think David's ever figured out how to rationalize our phones. I know you've been thinking about it and working on it, but we are clearly spending too much money on phones.
No, we've been, the police chief and I and the fire chief, we met with a representative from Ashland to talk about a voice over IP phone system, and looked at the amount of money that they saved in just the initial year by implementing that whole system. And
What's the savings?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was...
Did pay for the...
Yeah, it paid for itself. Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah. The notes I have, it would be about 70 grand up front, and then, for the new equipment and everything. But you'll see that in the capital plan.
Well, but David, you're comfortable with what you've got here and what you have to work with. There's a whole bunch of buckets of different things that tend to get jiggled around a little bit.
I just know for the last 5 years it's been...
It's always turned back, right?
So, yeah. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
I agree.
That's probably a lot of good intentions that weren't completed because of just ran out of time in the year.
Yeah,
Well, it looks like 14 we didn't turn back.
that's correct.
But it's always hung around $200,000.
Mhm.
And I would say Diane spends a lot of time dealing with building stuff.
There are a lot of
Yeah, a lot of things to deal with, whether it's fighting with vendors to get them in to do stuff, or dealing with their complicated billing.
right.
And,
For example, you witnessed the recent generator thing, that
Yes.
shut down. And to get them in on an emergency call was about twice as much as waiting until Tuesday, which would be a 5-day wait. But we had them come in, and then we negotiated with them not to charge us the $400 or $500 emergency call. So it ended up being about half that. Normally, it would, if we want a lower rate, we got to wait. It's not an emergency response. So in that instance, we were successful in negotiating a lower amount, but
No, we're not meeting before you go to capital budget, are we?
not before capital budget, no.
Might be nice to see those. When are you going to capital?
I
budget?
have them right here.
Oh. Can we
Yeah.
ask them to
Yeah,
pass it up?
yeah, why not? It just surprised to me also.
Well, I had it under
Under TA,
later in the budget.
yeah.
I mean, later on the agenda.
Well, should we wait?
Well, if it's timely now, maybe we should just look at it now.
If you look at the lower right-hand corner, the first 2 or 3 pages, or first 4 pages is an update on where you're at as far as the warrant development and the capital development in the budget. Then there's a checklist of where the warrant stands now. A number of these items we've compiled. So the capital items says town building facilities, various projects, 57,500.
What page?
What page are we on?
It says checklist in the lower right-hand corner. 2 more pages.
Article checklist?
So this is basically what the warrant looks like right now with all the capital items. We reduced some of the costs on those town building items and then bundled. One bundle was for technology and the other bundle is for building and facility projects. And in talking to Ed, we removed the project, the lighting intersection project, which was $230-something thousand. And we're going to refer that out to Traffic Safety and to the Public Safety Committee to hopefully bring something back next year.
Well, wait, of the $57,500 for town building and facilities, various projects, can you tell us what those projects are?
Yeah, if you continue turning, you turn it a couple of more pages, the lower right says Capital 1. And then go to Capital 2. And Capital 2 is a summary of the building facilities projects. And then the next page, Capital 3, is under the, shows the technology projects. And they're all in priority order.
What cabinets are going to be removed?
There's a cabinet in the town clerk's office that weighs about a half ton that's been sitting there for a long time, and we got estimates on what it's going to cost to move it. It took about 4 or 5 CM&D guys to slide it out of the way, but it needs to be removed or relocated. And then there's another sort of broken safe that's in the storage room in the basement that we would have removed under that.
Is it an antique? Can we sell it?
On eBay.
We can try. I don't think anybody knows how to open it if it's locked, but that's,
People who
we can
are,
always redo that.
yeah, people who are interested in
Yeah.
that kind of stuff might
So
come
are
and
you
take it away
going-
for you.
Sorry. So you go in the capital budget with these, let's say, I don't know, I didn't go beyond Capital 2 here yet. But with at least Capital 1 and Capital 2, are you going to them with, what are you going to say? Because we haven't voted on this stuff. Are you, you're going to say, well,
No.
where's the BOS on these things?
Well, those are the items that they received NOIs on, back in December. So
Right.
they've had them in their capital list as in development. So if you look back, sometimes we haven't taken a vote on capital items until
They've taken a
even
vote.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little chicken in the egg. But I just, if you're not representing that we've taken a position, I guess is the
No.
question. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Some of these we haven't really discussed in any great length, we've only touched
No.
on them.
What's the missing $3,000 on the technology? Capital 3 says 29.5, Capital 1 says 32.5.
Bless you. That's a separate thing, isn't it? That's assessors something or other.
Capital, which one?
Town building technology, various projects, 32.5 on Capital 1. And then Capital 3, which is the summary of what those are, only totals to 29.5. I'm just asking you where the missing $3,000 is.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I gotta change the amount on the checklist.
So on 1? On Capital 1?
Checklist.
No, Capital 3
Capital 3.
should be 29,500.
It is. So Capital 1 is 32.5. So is Capital 1 is wrong, the 32.5 should be 29.5?
Right.
Okay.
And that's an excerpt out of that checklist from a few pages before.
Okay. Oh, I see the checklist being the
The warrant.
Checklist is the checklist.
So that's wrong there, too.
So those items, if you want to go through them, town building surge protection was started out as a lightning project because the police department had been hit several times with lightning, or so we thought, and it had knocked out different systems, like the video cameras. We turned those claims into the insurance company, and they recommended, of course, that we start looking into trying to do something differently so that we don't keep incurring claims. So we got a couple of quotes to provide some lightning protection, but in the process of bringing NSTAR out and talking to electricians and engineers, it's basically a surge protection project. And then we tried looking at each of the buildings to see if CM&D garage, what it would need, what the police department would need, and what town hall would need. And it was around, at one point we were around 30,000, and now we've dropped it back at 20, and that's what we feel that project can go for. The transfer station fencing, that's a result basically to keep stuff from blowing out into the water areas around it.
So when we get around to dealing with these in earnest as a board, and having seen in the past the board go into advisory at advisory's public hearing, or proponents going to capital budget, one of the things they like to have when you say town building surge protection 20 grand is, some backup to support that number. Another piece of paper that maybe has the quote on it, the vendor of the quote or whatever.
Well, each one of these has an NOI with extensive background.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. It's just the backup.
And I can email you the PDFs, but I didn't want to print it out.
Yeah, no. So it's just when we're ready to deal with it, we'll have it, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
So you're just, right now, as I see what you're doing, or the attention I'm giving it in terms of bandwidth, is you're just giving us a general overview of what these are.
These are the items that capital budget is expecting us to report on or to fill them in on.
So you, for example, transfer station fencing, you or Carol has provided, here's a quote for fencing for this length, and it's this type fencing and so forth.
Yeah, and the quote came out to $13,136, and we rounded it up to $13,500.
That's all.
Yeah, most of this stuff we've covered before. We've had it, I think the fencing was even in last year, right?
We had fencing last year for the front of it, which was done. This is the fencing around the back.
Yeah, but we've talked with Carol.
We've talked
she's
about it.
She's been in on that.
We should really have to do it because there are wetlands, and wetlands are...
I understand.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, I think we've
It's just more our project,
passed through that.
not the recycling committees.
Yes.
The hearing assist for the police department training room is $7,500.
Yep.
That seems awfully expensive for such a small room.
Yeah, I mean, it's the equipment. It's regardless of the size of the room. We'll have to look at the quote so you can see how it compares to our system in this room.
Where are you seeing that one?
Under, it says Capital 3 in the lower right-hand corner.
Capital
It says capital items, and the third item is hearing assistance PD training room.
Oh, okay, I get you.
Well,
And
I
that-
thought we did this room for like hundreds of dollars, not $7,500.
No, it was about $6,000.
Was it 6,000?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And that was supposed to be put in this already here.
yeah. So it's a significant cost, and we had one request that the PD room be equipped that way. Now, you can say that you only have one conference room, this being the conference room. If you had a request come in for an accommodation, that meeting would have to be relocated to be used in this room. Or you need to provide a temporary assisted listening device through a state program for the people to participate in whatever meeting's being held at the police department. Or you can just go ahead and do the whole room, which is what this is.
Okay. Should we get into the other budgets here? Employee benefits, debt, treasurer and accountant?
I'm going to step to the men's room, but keep going.
Okay. So employee benefits, David? And I'm not sure, I mean, tell me if...
Under employee benefits, that's still reviewing that.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not go through stuff if it's not in a position to be reviewed.
Employee benefits is not ready, and town treasurer or town accountant are not ready. Those are both ones that I want more input from other people.
Okay. Can I just, in general, on the employee benefits, when you get to where you're ready, as part of that, wherever you wind up on the health insurance, in terms of the increase, there's two pieces to an increase. It's whatever you assume for additional participants, and it's also the rate increase. And then whatever you use for rate increase, how that squares up with the rate increase at that the region's using.
Okay.
You know, just reconciling that in a general fashion. And likewise, you have a pension number. I think there's probably a hard number that you can tie that to, that what we're looking at doesn't look like it's the current one. And I don't know if we have a more updated pension plan review report, or the last, we're out of cycle on that, but to the extent there's new information, that would be useful. And we typically, with this part, the employee benefits part of the package, if you look back, David, to what was included in the books and the package in previous periods, there's very good explanatory materials that I'm sure can be brought forward and updated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's worthwhile, if possible.
Yeah, on the employee benefits and those items?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like a 4-page narrative with some descriptions and so forth.
Right, right.
Support of that stuff. That would be great. Okay.
And the debt budget is, if you look at that, that is a number that basically covers the costs of the debt payments for FY16, plus an estimated cost for the projects that are moving forward under the capital plan. And those are the amounts that I need more time
okay.
on.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a little hard to decipher. Some of the numbers are obviously hard numbers that based on a payment schedule and all that, right? And I know that advisory in their guidance had put a low number, or maybe they had a higher number. If I'm looking at the right thing. I'm not looking at the right thing. Yeah, it's one way or the other.
Or was the same?
They had so we have, for example, in the advisory guidance on your schedule, David, the third page of the schedule you gave us, the summary schedule, this thing right here? Yes. Yeah. So if I looked, I went and looked at their guidance for that number for debt service, and you have $1,491,000, which would be a 1.5% increase. They, advisory, had $1,393,000 as their guidance number.
I had $1,418,000.
But Peter's talking about the guidance number.
The guidance number.
In other words, they didn't increase it by a straight 1.5%.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They tried to predict it.
All right, yeah. Okay, so you.
So what's that number here? Is 1,397?
Yeah, 1,393.
So we're close, but it kind of is what it is, right? I mean, that's...
It is what it is, yeah, plus the subjective, here's what you're projecting for things that are likely to go out to be bonded in the debt service on that, right? Yep.
Right.
That will affect fiscal 15. So I guess it's the last bonding we did that would come into play, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever costs of these existing items that we end up
Yeah.
bonding next year in short
You
time.
you know what else would be helpful with this package is just the listing of what we have for debt, the notes payable schedule, if you will, right? That says, here's what we have outstanding, this is what we owe as of whatever time we pick, and what the related interest rates are on those line items, because there's a variety of things that we've got to
Right.
borrow.
There's a breakout in the budget, but it's not,
It doesn't show
the
the
actual
amounts we
note of-
owe.
right,
That's what I'm
right.
looking for, you know? That would be terrific.
Okay. Good. Paul, David says employee benefits, treasurer, and accountant budgets are not ready. We just went through the debt budget, which is, there's not a lot to be done there. So unless anybody objects, I'd say we're done with the budget talk for tonight. We're on to selectmen reports or routine business.
Can I just draw your attention to this
The thing you handed us
supplemental?
out.
Yeah, sure.
If you look at Board of Selectmen update, page 2,
Yeah.
that's a list of the items that the selectmen have already reviewed.
Yeah.
And if you go to the next page, it's the items that were being reviewed tonight. And then for February 12th, it lists the items that need to be addressed for the budget and capital budget and warrant. But again, and I made notes there of the dates that you would have to make some sort of decision. But again, you don't necessarily have to have, you don't even have to have the votes on the capital items before you go to advisory, but I think they requested that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all I have.
That makes
All right,
sense.
so this is a good game plan for us to really,
Yeah, this is helpful.
a checklist for us to see where we're at and what we got to do, right? Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
That was
Good.
the budget and warrant notices of intent. Any other town administrative business? You had a staffing update, David? And also, can you tell us where we are with the appointment to the Leland Farms trusteeship?
I haven't received any inquiries on that. We did advertise it, just like we were advertising the traffic safety position. There was one other person that came forward to expressed interest in that, so that'll be brought back to you on the February 12th budget. Agenda.
That goes back to traffic safety for them to review all the candidates and come up with a recommendation, because that's been our general practice, is to let the committees weigh in on.
Well, I think they weighed in on that one.
They
They've
did.
given us a candidate already. That was
Yeah,
kind of
but
what started this whole thing.
apparently there's another candidate that should have a chance to consider the other candidate.
So they have that.
They're
Once
aware
that application came in, we let the committee know, but we didn't ask them to meet to vote on.
No, why don't you tell them it'll be on the February 12th agenda, and
Right.
they should meet beforehand to give us, if their recommendation changes, or
Right,
can you do that?
yeah.
Okay.
And on the Leland Farms business, we need to find an applicant. So if there's been no response to what we've done so far, what else can we do to recruit somebody for that position?
I have to think.
And we
That's a-
probably need to work our
That's
any
not-
relationships we
Yeah,
may
that's
have,
not a
right?
easy thing that somebody can just step into.
It's a significant position. It's
A big commitment.
It's going to be a difficult position for a period of time, probably.
The pay is good.
Isn't somebody supposed to always find their successor here? Isn't that how that
Is
works?
that what?
Yeah, I think so. Cory.
I think she had a successor, but I think the successor has decided not to
do it.
be a successor.
Actually, I haven't heard that, so,
That was my impression.
okay.
I can confirm.
While we're on town administrative business, David, just because it relates to the budget, one of the things when we talked about the insurance budget, the general insurance budget, we said somebody ought to go talk to the Maya folks or whatever and see where they're at on that, and, you know, and maybe even look out elsewhere to see what else may be out there, right? I don't know if that, we've done that, but I think we need to at
Right.
least cover that bit before we finalize the numbers here on that.
You know, even when you go out to the market, my experience has been that when you have a couple at the table, insurance companies at the table, you don't get a final firm number until practically the last minute. I've had it come through from two insurance companies on June 30th. So I think what's budgeted is adequate for whatever, but, you know, we may be able to have some additional savings.
Oh, I
That's-
see. Yeah, okay.
And I have talked to a company about doing that, and it'll take,
But you won't get a quote until later in the year, post-budget
yeah,
time.
I mean, I can push and push. They'll give me a ballpark, probably a not-to-exceed amount, but not the
But
actual.
Maya hasn't done a renewal quote, have they, or they have?
No, they,
I know,
I'm
Paul,
recused
sorry,
on
yes,
this, so
okay.
if you're going to
I won't
go on
go
with
any
this,
further.
then I want to step aside, but if it's just general...
So just generally ask for a renewal quote.
yeah, I would say that it's, I would look at it as a procurement issue. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. David, what's the other, you had other personnel updates?
The personnel update is that we do have acceptance for a town accountant position to start on Monday. And, you know, I always reserve until I actually see a person
Right.
show up for work that
You have to
day.
wait until at least 9:15 before you can place your first call, Peter.
There you go. No, that's great. Good job getting somebody well qualified by all accounts and coming in to help
Well-
with a lot. You can see the types of questions we ask, and that'll be great.
Yeah, we'll bring her in for the meeting on the 12th.
Great, good.
She wasn't able to come tonight.
Well, it coordinates nicely with the warrant article to have a finance director,
That's right.
town accountant. So is this person aware of the warrant article and the prospects that...
Actually, we recruited for a town accountant that could serve, had the skills of a finance director, or could serve as a finance director / accountant. And that's pretty much what the article is doing. So, yeah, this person can meet that, but they're not, there's no obligation on the behalf of the town to deliver that. This person will be happy being the town accountant, and they have to serve kind of in a finance director, financial advisor role for the Board of Selectmen, whether that article passes or not.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Selectmen business reports. Maybe we all want to report about the MMA meeting. Paul, you had extensive involvement, and Peter and I attended a session or two, all of which was pretty educational. At least from my experience, that was the first one of those I'd been to, and I was impressed with the quality of the information. And I'll just say the session I went to had to do with stormwater obligations that municipalities are facing, and I know we've had some discussions here about that, and I know our CM&D director and our conservation agent are on top of those requirements, but they can be very costly, extensive requirements with, you know, the force of federal law behind them. So it's something we need to keep alert to. In bigger municipalities and municipalities with extensive stormwater collection and disposal systems, they're talking about expenses in the, you know, high hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to comply with these requirements. Our systems are much smaller. Hopefully, the compliance will be, you know, proportionately less. But you know, I don't have that detail. Did you go to any good sessions, Peter?
Well, I went to the opening session, heard the governor, and that was good. He was quite supportive of municipalities, local aid, and all that kind of stuff. I also went through the exhibit hall, no end to town councils and accounting firms and
Engineers.
software service providers and engineers and all sorts of stuff. But I ran into Dick Kobayashi from the Collins Center. They had a booth going, and I asked him if he might be available. We're going to be dealing with, I don't know where they are in the checklist. If we're dealing with the warrant articles related to further changing of town government here, I asked him if he might be willing and able to come in and talk through, get an update of where we're at and talk through what they had recommended some years ago. And he would be willing if that's something we wanted to do.
Okay.
Might be beneficial once we figure out what we're going to do. His insights, the Collins Center insights, might be useful to hear from the horse's mouth.
Okay, good. I think, Paul, you were reelected to your board. Excellent.
Yes, and part of what I do there is go to as many of these seminars as possible, not stay the whole seminar, but go there for 15, 20 minutes and get a sense of how good they are and how well they're being received and how good the speakers are, and are they effectively delivering the service we want to the municipal leaders. And so I've been to, at this convention, I must have been to quite a few of those. There were two that were quite remarkable. One was a session on how to do investigations, and they had a very dynamic guy. I mean, he didn't stay on the podium on a chair. He was down right with the audience and waving his arms, and asking questions, and then asking questions of the audience, and then say, well, that's pretty much exactly what you should not be doing. Here's why. And so it was kind of like a fun session, because all of us at some point have to put on the hat of being the investigator and trying to get answers to questions, because that's part of being a selectman. And the question is, how do you do it and how do you get the information? It was a fun thing to do, a fun course. So I'm going to give that high grades. And another one that stood out was the one on economic development. The town of Sherborn flirts with the idea of having some kind of economic development, particularly in the business district. And what does it take to accomplish that? There was a discussion of different tools that were available, different mechanisms, and one of them is similar to what we've been talking about with this downtown planning group, which is that you can borrow money for public infrastructure, but the borrowing is not a charge on the current taxpayers. It's on the growth, the new growth that's going to occur because you do the work. The problem is, if you put like water and sewer, you got to borrow the money, you got to pay for the improvements, and maybe like the Field of Dreams, maybe they will come, but what happens if they don't come and you're out there having borrowed the money and you have to pay for the associated debt service? So there was a lot of interesting things to think about, and there were a lot of courses. We try to have an update on municipal law. We try to have an update on the open meeting law, so that the basic legal stuff is presented. But there were a lot of fun courses too.
Yeah, that was a good event. Excellent. I think we have a warrant to approve.
Well, but under Selectmen's reports, I just want to reiterate. Yeah. Because in the reading file was the letter from Department of Revenue about our free cash. And as I thought about it, I really have to smile. This is January 8th, and I know we've talked a little bit about it before, but $1,980,225. It's just a little bit under $2 million. And how wonderful that is. So as I looked at it, I had to smile. I don't think we've ever had free cash that high, at least in recent memory, having gone through this recession. It's going to make our life a little easier as we go into this budget season. And maybe some of this money should go into some of this OPEB and stabilization and other long-term funding sources. And maybe we can use some of this for capital projects so that we don't have to go to the voters and increase taxes with capital projects. So it gives us a whole variety of alternatives. Under the financial policies adopted by the board, we're supposed to be trying to get this number in October. I think it's by October 31.
Mm-hmm.
And yet this is an improvement. I think getting
this
on January 8th is better than we have done in many a year.
Yeah.
Because I remember we were trying to decide on how to fund things without knowing what free cash was much later in the process. So this is a great improvement, but hopefully with the new personnel that we have on board and so on, that we can try and get this on schedule with the financial policies of the town that the board had voted.
The new person has a verified track record with Department of Revenue of getting certifications in October.
Hooray. Wow. 'Cause it makes planning much easier. In other words, instead of people going out and figuring out, let's submit all these capital projects, you can do a letter in advance saying, you know, we think we might want to spend $500,000 on capital projects. And just like advisory sends out a letter trying to give guidance to budget makers, and say, here's what we think we can spend, and what do you have that will meet it, so that you can be ahead of the curve. Right now, we have all these capital projects that come at us that people think that need to be done, and so we're reacting to it, and the free cash number comes in later rather than up front. Hopefully that'll correct itself over time.
We'll also have the financials in the next week or so, which I've been talking to the auditors and sending them a few last things. So that's earlier than, these are FY14 financials. So,
Wow. So we're getting drafts?
yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I saw
Which is earlier
Frank
than-
get this thing as well.
Oh, Frank, yeah.
Okay, so we've got the town administrator's salary warrant.
Before, just before, because I'm going down the list, what are we supposed to do with this? I hope you don't spend a lot of time on it. I mean, unless, because I never look at the thing.
No, it's,
Yeah, we could
I
probably
don't know
save
if
some
you
paper.
do, but-
No, we could probably save some paper on that one.
it was approved at the end, the beginning of the year, and it just helps when you're setting something long-term. Like, I just noticed that we had planned on a meeting for March 5th. I think that's the town caucus night. So I'm going to have to find a different date for that. But no, it's information only. If you don't need it, then we won't put it in there anymore.
Well, it is nice to know when the next meeting is.
Well, I think
Well,
we've
that
got
you
the
can
next
vote.
meeting. Yeah, we can vote that. I think the next meeting would be 2 Thursdays from now, right?
So that's February 12th.
Yeah, unless there's a reason to have one next week.
No, I hope we
Okay.
we don't. I like the idea. For many years, this board met every 2 weeks. And then we got into this business where we had to meet every week because we had to sign a warrant
Right,
every
and now we're
week.
trying to get back to every 2 weeks, and when
Yeah.
we can, we should do it.
Aren't we off warrant cycle? Right?
Yeah, I think we are.
So what we're approving is the last one? You already got paid, whether we approve it or not. I'm half joking, but or are we dealing for the next week's warrant?
No, this would have gone in,
This is last week's.
would have gone into my bank account last night.
All right, so
Yeah.
do we
If
want
you
to...
don't sign it,
Do we want to approve it or not? I mean...
Yeah, no, it's...
if you don't sign it, I got to write you a check.
Yeah.
But
So do we have a
part
motion
of-
to approve?
Part of the reforms we did has him signing all the warrants except for his own personal salary. And there was for years a practice of the board that I and others objected to, where pretty much everybody got paid. Everything went out before we had a chance to really have a say in things.
Well, all I'm saying, because we're off cycle, that we're not likely to come in and flip through the stack on this that is
Unless
made
we make a
available.
point of doing that.
Unless we make a point to
Right.
come in.
No, I want to, using that schedule,
But we're off a week on David, that's all.
using that schedule, I want to see where I can skip and get
Cycle
it
us
back.
back in.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be good.
Yeah.
All right, so
It's
do we have
no big deal.
a motion to approve David's...
So we're doing $50 million to David today?
It's perfect.
You should probably say the real number now, Paul.
No, just joking. I move approval of the warrant.
Second.
All right, and I'll just, to clarify for people, it's not $50 million. And I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Okay. Great. Do we have any other business before us?
No.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, we're adjourned. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Elliot, for sticking it out. Nancy?
Elliot was quiet.
Sarah?